This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate first part of What If Naruto Fell in Sea of Black Tears in Forest of Death. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no time, let's start the story.
It was part 2 of the notorious Chunin exam. After our blonde hero and his team entered the forest, Sasuke took their heaven scroll. The decision was decided by a vote of more than 2 to 1. They had just fought off an ambush attempt by a rain team when Naruto went to bleed the lizard, and were now hopping through the trees. Sakura needed a break, so they came to a stop in a clearing. The first person to notice that the wind was picking up more quickly than usual was Naruto. "Guys, watch out," he yelled. A strong wind started to blow, and he shoved the others aside. Naruto failed to escape being blown away, but the others did. It sent him hurtling through the trees. His teammates felt a huge killer intent, that far outweighed even Zabuza's, so they didn't have much time to stare. They saw the woman from Kusa, grass, as they looked forward helplessly. With a dark laugh, the woman pulled down her left eye and said, "Well, it seems one of you was able to sense my jutsu, but now he's gone, and you two are finished." Images of their own deaths, each ending with a kunai to the forehead, attacked Sasuke and Sakura's minds. "Now then, it seems the prey is weaker than I thought, such a shame," the woman said as they were frozen in terror. She then threw a kunai straight at their heads, and Sasuke thought, "Damn it, move body, move." He swiftly took a kunai out of his pouch and stabbed himself in the leg, which allowed him to grab Sakura and get out of the way. He was able to beat the fear with pain. This prey is far more intriguing, the woman thought. With Naruto, as he descended to earth, Naruto sailed into tree branches. He heard a hissing sound behind him as he hit the ground. A huge snake that could easily swallow him whole was in front of him when he hurriedly stood up, and it appeared to want to do so. The ground cracked beneath the snake as it slithered closer. When the snake's weight became too much, the ground gave way, bringing Naruto and the snake down with it. It appeared that they were falling into a cave. At the bottom, Naruto noticed what appeared to be a small lake with dark water that had a foreboding atmosphere. The snake and Naruto both fell into the water, with somewhat different but comparable outcomes. Naruto lost consciousness while attempting to swim to the shore. The snake was not so fortunate, as it was pulled down and engulfed in the dark embrace of black tendrils. Naruto received a different treatment. They pushed him to the shore while the tendrils were still encircling his body. Kyuubi's cage in Naruto's mind. "Scape?" The fox himself watched as the dark water replaced the water in his mind, saying, "No, it can't be, this boy he couldn't have. Please don't tell me he fell into that accursed water." The fox backed away in fear as the dark water crept into the cage, knowing what it was after. Lashing out, black tendrils pulled the fox down, sucked it up, and fed on it. It roared one last time, but was still pulled in. "No, this isn't happening. I can't die like this, not by this water, not by the sea of black tears," it cried. An additional section is Naruto's mind, scape. When Naruto woke up, he saw what many would consider to be a terrible sight, or, in his view, pretty damn awesome. The field he was in was divided in two. He saw numerous enormous statues of either swords, axes, or other objects he had no idea what they were on the left side, which was lush and green. The sky was sunny and clear. He noticed something from a horror film on the right. The ground was as white as ash, the trees were rotten, and the sky was thundering and dark. Out loud, Naruto exclaimed, "Where the hell am I?" He turned quickly and saw a woman on the left side of the field after hearing a voice behind him say, "You're in your mind. I hope you don't mind, but we did a little redecorating in here, it looked like crap." He thought she was beautiful. She wore blue jeans, a shirt featuring the logo of a fallen raven with an ankh in the middle, spiked bracers, brown shoulder length hair, and a belt that was equally spiky. She had black paint on her fingernails. One of the statues that resembled a sword was supporting her. "Did it really?" he asked, and then he heard another voice say, "Oh, it did, but I doubt it was your fault." Then he noticed a woman beside one of the trees on the right. Her appearance matched the scene, but her voice was the same as the first woman's. Her skin was blue, as though she had drowned and then risen. She wore her long hair in barrettes that resembled thorns. She was wearing a black dress that appeared to be more fluid than fabric and was torn. Her feet were hidden by the same dress, so he couldn't see them. Naruto responded, "Who are you, both of you, and how did you end up in my mind?" "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. My name, or rather, our name, is Ophelia. And as to how we got here, well, you remember the water you fell in?" was the first woman's response. Naruto replied with a nod, "Yeah, it was dark, and it didn't really feel like water. I saw a snake get dragged down, but I passed out and ended up here." It's strange that none of the water got into you yet, but when you fell in, you already had it in you. How is that possible? The second woman, who I'll call D. Ophelia, said, that was no ordinary water. You landed in the sea of black tears. She, pointing to Ophelia, once fell into the same water, along with the fact that her parents did the same. She approached Naruto and looked him in the eye. D. Ophelia grinned and remarked, I knew it, you did, didn't you? Ophelia narrowed her eyes and said, what? The only way that could be true is if you were related to someone who fell in. No way. Naruto, perplexed by what they were referring to. What are you both talking about? Ophelia responded. Well, while we were alive, we knew a man by the name of Eddie Riggs. He came to our land and aided us in our fight for freedom. He saved our people from slavery. And I fell in love with him. After the war was over, he and I, well, got together. We lived a long time, protecting Bladehenge, our home. We had a family, but I never knew it could have continued. Naruto responded, wait, do you mean to tell me that we could be related? According to D. Ophelia, that is the best bet, after all, unless your mom or dad drank from the sea, it's the only other option. D. Ophelia noticed a single, dark tear as Naruto lowered his head, proving that he was related to them. Ophelia asked, why so sad? Most people would be glad to hear they have a family. D. Ophelia gave him a back hug. With his head raised and a broad smile on his lips, Naruto said, I am. I never knew if I had any family out there, but I'm glad, because even though I fell down into the water, I gained an important thing. His eyes were filled with black tears. D. Ophelia continued, normally, anyone who fell into the water would lose the will to live in exchange for power, but because we're here, that doesn't apply to you. We can help you control the water so that you gain the power over it, without it controlling you. It will take time for it to stabilize in order to use it, but for now, all you have is the physical enhancement. Once it settles, we'll then teach you how to fight using it. What happened to the snake? Inquired Naruto. Ophelia replied, that snake that fell down with you, when it was dragged down into the water, it came under your control. D. Ophelia replied, I brought it back to life, after improving it with the black water, and sent it to gather some of the beasts in this forest to add to your control. I managed to do it before you got here. How did you land in the sea in the first place? Inquired Ophelia. Replied, I was blasted by a large gust of wind after pushing my teammates out of the way. When I crashed down, the snake tried to attack me, and when it got close, the ground collapsed, and I ended up in the sea. Wait, crap, I have to go help my team. He is just like Eddie, always wanting to go help others, D. Ophelia and Ophelia thought. D. Ophelia responded, Naruto, when you wake up, the snake will take you to your team, but you have to direct it on where you have to go. While Ophelia nods in agreement, she added, and we have a few weapons for you too. But first, we are going to have to change your body a bit, and that awful orange thing you call a jumpsuit. During a panic attack, Naruto exclaimed, but I like orange. Why'd I have to get rid of it? Then D. Ophelia said, oh, forget about it. In addition, you'll like the new cloth better. Sigh. Fine, I'll take them. So what are these weapons you told me about? Naruto says. 5 objects appeared to be floating in midair when Ophelia flicked her wrist. The first one was different. It had a large hook at the tip of a pitch black blade. There were 7 spikes that resembled skulls and had kanji engraved on them along the edge of the blade. 7 pairs of colored diamonds were set in the eye sockets. The next 2 were slightly jagged katana swords that were wielded in pairs. The 2 blades were entirely dissimilar from one another. The blade of the one on the right is completely white, while the handle and sheath are completely black. The one on the left had a black, powered blade, while its sheath and handle were white. The final 2 were weapons that Naruto was unfamiliar with. Both were coal black, but the handle grips had a long tube attached to them and were crimson red. The handles of one are engraved with the names Saint and Sinner, which is the only distinction between them. Ophelia clarified what they were after noticing his bewilderment. I'm not surprised you don't know what these are, Naruto, because they haven't been seen for thousands of years. They're 357 Magnum revolver pistols, and the tubes attached to the barrels are called silencers. These shoot highly condensed chakra projectiles, or bullets. D. Ophelia began to describe the capabilities of the other weapons. She walks over the swords and seizes the one with the skulls on it, saying, now the swords are one of a kind in this world as well. She gives Naruto a closer look at the skulls and says, this one is called the Elemental Sin. Its ability allows you to control over the 5 elements, control over the powers of light and shadow. The first skull featured red diamonds and the kanji for fire. The second one featured green diamonds and the kanji for wind. The third one featured yellow diamonds and the kanji for lighting. The fourth one featured blue diamonds and the kanji for water. The next one featured brownish diamonds in the kanji for earth. The diamonds on the 6th kanji were transparent and it was light. The final one featured black diamonds in the kanji for shadows. Ophelia takes the 2 swords and swings them a couple of times. According to Ophelia, the one with the white blade is called Annihilation and the one with the black blade is called Demolition. Annihilation's ability is when its blade cuts anything it turns to dust, and Demolition's ability is everything it cuts twice explodes. Ophelia concludes, leaving a shocked Naruto staring at her with wide eyes. When Naruto realized he had teammates to assist, he became extremely agitated and said, "Well, that's great but really got to go and help my team." Ophelia responded, "Well then go, we got everything covered, so go, and if you ever need to talk to us, just think, and one of us will answer. Now go out there and show the world what you're made of." As Naruto said, "Don't worry Ophelia. Okasan, I plan on it," he began to lose his mind. He is going to be one hell of a guy for a lucky gal, thought Ophelia and Ophelia. Shore's sea of black tears. When Naruto awoke, he leapt to his feet and surveyed his surroundings. The snake from earlier was waiting for him, but it resembled Ophelia in that its scales had a faint blue tint. He nearly screamed as he turned to face himself. He swiftly withdrew a polished kunai and turned to face himself. The appearance of his face shocked him even more. His height had shot up to 6 feet 2 inches and gained a lot of muscle. His face was an identical copy of the 4th Hokage, only his hair had black streaks in it and he had piercings on his right eyebrow, 2 silver rods. He also noticed that his cloths had changed. He was now wearing a tight fishnet shirt and over was a black wife beater and that was a trench coat. He also was wearing black cargo pants with white flames going up the sides and was wearing black combat boots. He looked for his weapons and found that Elemental was strapped to his back vertically and was warped in some black cloth. Annihilation and Demolition were attached to his hips. Annihilation on his right and Salvation on the left. Saint and Sinners were in holster underneath his trench coat. Once he got a good look at himself, he then jumped onto its head and said, "Let's go. We have a couple teammates to save." The snake made a nodding motion, and rushed forward, exiting the cave, and crashed through the forest. As they made their way through, Naruto sensed his team in growing danger. Once they arrived, Naruto saw Sasuke about to toss their heaven scroll away. Naruto jumped off the snake, grabbed the scroll in one hand, and punched Sasuke in the face with the other. "The hell is wrong with you, dude?" was Sasuke's way of expressing his anger. He stopped in the middle of his sentence, stunned by what he saw. This was not the Naruto he knew. This was a man of power. "Are you a fool?" Naruto scowled at him. "This freak would have killed you both and taken our scroll from your fucking carcass if he had wanted it. No, we would still have died in any case." The Kusa Genin laughed and remarked, "I'm glad to see someone with common sense and backbone, but the question still stands. Who are you and how are you able to control my snake? Well, why is the Sannin Orochimaru gracing us with his disgusting presence?" Naruto asked, his eyes widening with comprehension. "Since I have a fairly accurate guess, I doubt it's to become a Chunin. Or are you here to find out what side people believe you to be on? And you should be aware that I was the one you destroyed with your Winjutsu." Orochimaru remarked, "You little brat, how dare you mock me in such a manner? I will kill you for that." Sakura and Sasuke couldn't help but laugh no matter what. "Oh, you want to fight, freak? I'll be happy to oblige," Naruto said, grinning Cheshire style. "Just be careful not to let anyone down. Divide the day by let it roll." Orochimaru started to backpedal to avoid Naruto's slashes, but when his back touched the tree trunk, he had to move his head to the side to avoid a slash from Annihilation. When the Annihilation cuts the wood, the tree began to turn brownish, and then it just crumbled away to dust. Orochimaru stared at the tree in shock, thinking that if he didn't move, he would be dust instead of that tree. Naruto rushed forward at a speed neither Sasuke nor Sakura had ever seen him go before, and he appeared in front of the disgraced Sannin with the Annihilation and Demolition out. "This is the Kyuubi brat. I don't sense him using any of the fox's chakra, so how is he?" Orochimaru thought, but his thoughts were interrupted when Naruto took a moment to kick him in the stomach and sweep his legs before kicking him off the branch. The snake from earlier was waiting, its jaws wide open as Orochimaru fell, and he extended his arm outward and said, "Hidden Shadow Snake Hand." He was able to swing away when a big snake emerged from his sleeve and wrapped itself around a branch. However, Naruto was already there, his leg bent back, and kicked him in the side of the face as soon as he landed on the branch. Sasuke and Sakura were shocked to see that Naruto, the class clown, was defeating a Sannin and doing better than Sasuke. In his mind, Ophelia and Ophelia were encouraging him, and he let out a smirk, but it was quickly erased when Orochimaru turned to mud. With wide eyes, Naruto started scanning the area to see where the snake might have gone. He turned and used demolition to block a blow from Kusanagi, but when Orochimaru pulled Kusanagi away, he noticed a large chip in the blade's edge. How is it possible that his blade was able to chip the legendary Kusanagi? Orochimaru asked himself. The blades clash, sparks fly, and Naruto smirks as he crouches and then leaps at Orochimaru with demolition in an upward slash, which Orochimaru quickly blocks with Kusanagi. Naruto says, "Bad move Orochi, Teme," as he quickly backflips to escape. Orochimaru leapt after him, shouting, "What are you tacky?" Then, with a bang, the Kusanagi exploded, sending Orochimaru flying back and crashing into a tree. The hilt of the once great sword embedded itself in a tree in close proximity to Naruto. With a smirk that would have made the devil himself cower in a corner and weep, Naruto said, "Anything that demolition cuts twice explodes and annihilation turns anything it cuts to dust, so I would be very careful or you'll be dead soon." "I'm a dead man if this continues, so I've got to leave now," Orochimaru thought. His body suddenly turned to mud, putting Naruto on high alert. He looked down at his teammates and heard a horrified scream. Sakura screamed, and Sasuke screamed in agony as Orochimaru bit into his neck, causing the Sannin's neck to grow absurdly long. When the snake released its hold, the bite marks transformed into a Tomo seal that resembled a fully grown Sharingan. Sakura yelled, "What did you do to Sasuke? Kun, you freak. With my mark in place, I will gain one step closer to immortality," Orochimaru thought as he sank into the earth after laughing and saying, "I just gave Sasuke-kun a little gift, soon, he will seek me out for power, farewell." Damn it, whatever that freak did. Sasuke has a high fever, we need to get him somewhere safe in order to allow him to heal. Gazing at the snake, Naruto said, "Head back, I'll summon you if needed." The snake nodded its head before turning and returning to the sea. Naruto cursed as he grabbed what was left of the Kusanagi and rushed down to Sasuke. Sakura questioned, "Naruto, how were you able to fight off someone even Sasuke-kun couldn't beat?" As Naruto seized Sasuke and carried him on his shoulder. "It's a long story, and I don't trust you enough to tell you any of it," Naruto sighed. Ophelia and Ophelia were proud that he had turned his back on the same girl who was constantly hitting him over the head, even for trivial reasons, and they finally understood why he had said it after looking through his memories. As usual, Sakura became enraged and yelled, "You baka, what do you mean you don't trust me? We are teammates, and I would slap you if you weren't holding Sasuke-kun. At least I fought Orochimaru while you just sat there, if you can," Naruto remarked. He turned to leave, but Sakura tried to swing at his head, ignoring Sasuke on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto caught her fist with his left hand and remarked, "How pathetic, you really are still just a child. We have to hurry and find shelter, night is going to fall soon." Sakura was not far behind Naruto as he released her and leapt to the trees. Disclosure. Similar to anime, Naruto set Sasuke down and said, "I'm going for a nap, wake me when something happens." Sakura noticed that he was asleep and started setting traps to keep Sasuke safe. Naruto stopped at a clearing with a large tree at the end of it, which had a wide gap in its roots, ideal for hiding or providing a place to rest. The thoughts of Naruto. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw that he was lying on something other than grass on the left side of the field, and when he looked up, he saw Ophelia looking back down, grinning and saying, "Miss me?" Naruto smiled back, saying, "Perhaps it's not a crime, is it?" Ophelia laughed and replied, "No, though my other is dealing with helping the water stabilize, it will still take time for you actually use them." Relaxing, Naruto remarked, "At least it's going well." With his head resting in her lap, Ophelia relaxed, thinking, "Rest, for I can tell tough times are ahead." Releasing. A couple of hours later, after changing the damp cloth she used to lower Sasuke's fever, Sakura watched him sleep and thought about what Naruto had said to her. "I'm not a child, I'm a ninja of this village, just like Naruto, that stupid dead last. Who does he think he is, talking to me like that?" Sakura's eyes were getting heavy, so she briefly closed them before waking up when she heard, "Wake up Sasuke-kun, we have business with him." She turned to the origin of the sound with a horrified look on her face. Naruto awoke slightly, but decided to continue looking the part of being asleep, till the right time. The origin of the voice was one of the sound genin from the first exam. He was hunched over, bandages covering most of his body except his right eye, what could be seen besides his kimono. He wore a large fur-like lump on his back, and had a strange bracer on his right arm. His sound headband around his forehead. The second genin wore a tan shirt with the word, "death," on it in kanji. He, like the first genin, wore gray cameo pants, and had hair similar to Kakashi's. His headband was set into a helmet similar to that of the second Hokage's. He had what looked like holes in his palms. The third genin was different, a kunoichi. She wore a green sleeveless vest, her black hair extending down to her ankles, ending with it being tied by a purple ribbon. She, like her teammates, wore gray cameo pants. Unlike her teammates, who looked excited at the chance to kill, her face held a blush from looking at Naruto and what some would call a bitchy attitude, but had an undertone of wanting to get away as fast as she could. Naruto saw it and thought, she wants to leave sound, huh? I'll see if I can do something to help that. But for now, let's see how this show plays out. Either wake him up now or else, the mummy, looking genin said as he stepped forward. What will you do if I wake him up? Sakura asked. With a narrowed gaze, the first genin declared, we're going to kill him of course. Sakura exclaimed, and why is that? As she was astounded by how open they were. Was that what Orochimaru told you to do? Did he not? The genin were wide-eyed, unaware that their master had already met them. Who cares, Dosu? Can I please kill this bitch and that blonde kid? Said the second genin, stepping forward. Not really so observant are you, Zaku? He would have asked, had Dosu, the first genin, placed his arm in front of him. Not like we weren't going to anyway. The dirt is discolored and the grass is flipped over. A booby trap is only effective if no one notices it. Sakura grinned as she took a kunai from her pouch and cut a rope behind her. Dosu heard a rustle, as if something had come through the trees, and he saw a big log coming toward him. Good, but not good enough. You need more practice, he said, punching the log with the gauntlet with his arm, using the vibration from the impact to break it up. Sakura froze at the display, and she felt a hand grab her hair. A female voice said, Kami, you're pathetic, your hair is so much glossier than mine. Are you more interested in grooming than training? What a disgrace. Well, what do we have here? A kunoichi who isn't girly, good to see they exist. Aside from that Enko woman, Naruto thought as he smirked at the display while the girl gave Sakura a bigger tongue lashing than he did. Zaku replied, nice grab kin. Now let's kill those two toys of hers, while we make her watch. A cry of, leaf whirlwind, interrupted Naruto's thought, this isn't good, I may need to step in if it gets any worse. Sakura stared at the person who helped her, Rock Lee, the boy who had fought and defeated Sasuke before the exam began, who was easily identified by his green jumpsuit and orange leg warmers. It is most unyouthful to attack someone so defenseless, in such a state, he said. If you want to fight, I, Rock Lee, will make accommodations for you. My ear, it hurts, but how, I never got hit there. Dosu sneered and said, how pathetic, this will be over quickly. He pulled back his sleeve so it wouldn't dangle and cause him to trip. He rushed forward, swinging the arm with the gauntlet, aiming for Lee's head. Lee blocked the swing, but his head suddenly erupted in pain, and he staggered backwards, clutching his ear. You might have stopped the physical assault, but my melody arm is unique, Dosu remarked with a laugh. Vibration is amplified and transformed into sound, which I can manipulate using my chakra. You will be hurt even if you block my arm. Although impressive, your taijutsu is insufficient. He felt a dark chakra erupt next to him, and he knew Sasuke was awake. Naruto thought, oh crap, Lord of Brood is up, and so is the mark. He was thinking, damn, these guys are no joke, have to give them credit though, taking down Lee like that is tough to do. What are you losers doing here, coming to be beaten by an elite Uchiha? Asked Sasuke as he emerged from the tree and heard the sound genin. I'm untouchable because of this power. When Kin saw Sasuke gloating, she took out 3 senbon needles, each with a bell on the end, and said, untouchable, yeah right, have some of this. She threw the senbon at Sasuke's feet and pulled the strings that were tied to the bells, making them ring. Sasuke clutched his ears because the sound of the bells was too loud for him to hear, so he moved to the other side of the clearing to try to escape the noise, but Kin had other ideas. She then drew 3 more senbon, each tied with an exploding tag, and threw them at Sasuke's feet, where he covered his ears, thinking it was the bells again, and the tags went off, knocking him into one of the trees and straight into unconsciousness. Dosu grinned and remarked, how pathetic, even with the power Orochimaru Sama gave him, he was weak. It's time to murder you and your teammate, he says, turning to Sakura. Dosu raised his melody arm, ready to strike, and Sakura closed her eyes, waiting for the blow. Sakura was paralyzed with fear, for even her great Sasuke-kun had been defeated by these ninja, and now she would perish. With Saint on his head and Sinner pointing at Zaku, Dosu felt a cold steel against his head and heard Naruto say, you guys are rude, you were interrupting my nap, now one of you. Whoever has the scroll, drop it, or I shoot every last one of you. Dosu glanced at the blonde's previous location before turning back to face Naruto. Dosu thought, a little afraid, when did he get behind me? I didn't even sense him move. If you want to leave the Sound Village, ask to speak to the Hokage when your team reaches the tower. Tell him Naruto sent you. He can help you. Kin was terrified, her life in someone's hands, but then she heard a whisper in her ear. Thank you, I'll be sure to do so, she whispered back, blushing. In a defiant gesture, Dosu remarked, oh really, what makes you so sure? Can't proceed without a full team, right? Said Naruto with a sly smile. You're screwed in any case, but at least I'm giving you an option. You still have a few days, so you can at least try to get another set. Dosu considered his options. He could fight it out or give up and try again later, once his strength returned. Fine, we'll go, but this isn't over. He took out the necessary earth scroll from his pouch. Now leave, before I change my mind, Naruto said, taking the scroll from his grasp. Zaku, determined to win, yelled, like hell we will, now you gonna die. Zaku attempted to raise his arms, but Dosu retorted, don't be stupid, I already said we would leave, and we are, so let's go. Zaku sneered and went on with his attack, but before he could say another word, there were two loud bangs, and everyone's attention was drawn to either Naruto or his now smoking gun. Then, there were two thuds, and everyone turned to watch Dosu and Zaku, who had fallen to their knees and were both staring down at the holes in their chests. After giving Naruto one last glance, they fell face first, dead. Naruto looks at her and throws her a piece of paper as Kin looks at his weapon with wide eyes and fear. The rest of it had coordinate points on it, and when she looks at it, it says, get out of this forest and head to this location. She blushes and nods to Naruto before running off. Does that girl like him? I'll have to remind him that he should like me, not some other girl, Sakura thought. Ophelia thought, he is definitely a charmer, just like Eddie. Ophelia was thinking, well, this is looking interesting. You guys can come out, I know you're there, Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, Naruto said, glancing to a bush. It would be a reunion of rookies if Hinata's squad were present. The first thing Shikamaru and his group said was, what a drag, and look at you, it looks like you had an upgrade. Naruto remarked, strange, but I like it. Sakura looked at Naruto and realized for the first time that he had truly changed. Shikamaru replied, man, what was that about, you never acted like that in the academy. With a hardened expression, Naruto remarked, I grew up, after I lost someone I cared about. The others couldn't understand what he meant, but Ophelia knew because she saw a statue rise on her side of the field. It showed a girl in a mist and uniform, holding a mask in one hand and a senbon in the other. She was wearing simple sandals and no socks, and her face was framed by a mist headband that Naruto, if he were alone, would describe as that of an angel. The plate on the statue read, to the angel who taught me my most important lesson, forever rest in peace, my dear Haku. He really cared about her, didn't he? Ophelia said, glancing at the statue. His memories definitely show it, Ophelia said, glancing at her other self. They claim that they first met him while he was on a mission outside the village, unconscious from training and sleeping in a wooded clearing. When she discovered who he was, she was on the verge of killing him. In defiance, she woke him up. Before she left, she tried to tell him she was a boy, but he didn't believe her. They talked about who they value most, and Naruto felt his feelings grow as they did. He didn't know it was her until her mask broke, and they didn't cross paths again until he fought her on the bridge that a client had hired them to guard. After he beat her, she pleaded with him to kill her. He couldn't bring himself to do it, so he wouldn't. They heard a chirping sound as he lunged forward, intending to knock her unconscious. Haku died as a result of her hasty attempt to defend her master. I never saw Naruto so depressed in any of his memories. He was heartbroken. He must have had genuine love for her. How long ago did it happen? Ophelia inquired, glancing at the statue. Almost a couple mods. Why, wait, are you? Asked Ophelia. Yes, I am, Ophelia replied, but not right now. First, he needs to have more control over the water. I hope he can handle it, but I hope he does, he will get better, Ophelia thought. Eluding. What happened to him back there? He went nuts? Shikamaru asked, glancing at Sasuke's lying position. The King of Brood got in over his head in an attempt to boost his ego, sneered Naruto. The disturbance occurred while I was napping. You really are a troublesome guy, you know that, Shikamaru chuckled. How many scrolls? Both, and an extra heaven scroll courtesy of a team of idiot rain ninja, Naruto said with a smile. Damn, and we need a heaven too, this sucks, Shikamaru remarked. Oh man, I don't want to fight Naruto, not after what he just did. This sucks, Shoji thought, perspiring. Naruto took the heaven scroll he had obtained from the rain nin that had attacked him out of his pouch. He stated, "Here, you need one right, so we're set. Besides, it wouldn't be fair, right? Ino would have your head, along with your mom." "You have a point there." Shikamaru accepted the scroll and put it in his pouch. Shikamaru looked at his companions and replied, "We're going with Naruto's team to the tower, seeing as both of us have the scrolls we needed. It would be safer in numbers, so we're gonna rest here for a bit, then head to the tower." As Sakura and Ino conversed and Shoji opened a bag of chips, Naruto thought, "Kami, I wish she were still here." So he really did, and still loves her. His heart must be in turmoil, Diophilia thought to herself after hearing his thought. Nobody trusted Ino or Sakura to carry Sasuke because they couldn't do it while jumping through trees, so a few minutes later they set out for the tower with Naruto in tow. The riddle room in the tower. To be a good shinobi, you must in balance of heaven and earth, where earth is the body and heaven is the mind. If you lack in one but have the other, either train or study, Naruto said as Sasuke woke up and saw the large tablet on the wall after the two teams had entered the tower. Ino was taken aback, blushing slightly and wondering, what could have caused Naruto to become this way? He claimed to have lost a loved one, but who could have had such a profound impact on him? Both Sakura and Sasuke were unsure of what to think. As they watched Naruto summon Shikamaru to open the scrolls, their only thought was, "What happened to you?" When he opened his scroll and saw what he recognized as a summon seal, Naruto told Shikamaru to drop it. They landed in what appeared to be an X, and two figures emerged with a puff of smoke. The first was Kakashi Hitaki, the sensei of Squad 7, who was dressed in his typical Jonin uniform, had silver hair that defied gravity, and a headband that slanted over his left eye. The second figure was Squad 10 sensei Asuma Sarutobi, who had the same sideburns and beard as his father but appeared younger. He also wore the Jonin uniform, but he wore a loincloth with the kanji for Guardian on it over his pants. He still had his cigarette in his mouth. "So how did it go? Any trouble?" Kakashi asked, pulling out his book as usual, before they got a close-up look at Naruto. Asuma dropped the cigarette from his mouth, and Kakashi also dropped his book. Naruto sneered and muttered something that sounded like, "Impudent pink-haired harlot." Sakura responded, "Nope. Sasuke.kun kicked butt, as usual, while Naruto Baka just got in the way, as usual." Naruto then left, saying, "Tell me when the preliminary round begins. We have about a day, right? I'll see you all then." Sakura was given a stern look by Ino, who said, "That was wrong, and you know it. Naruto beat the sound team, when even Sasuke couldn't." Asuma turned to face Kakashi, who sounded colder than anyone had ever heard him when he spoke. "Sakura, what really happened in that forest, and do not think of lying to me, or else." When Sakura began to stammer, Sasuke interrupted, saying, "Ino's right, Naruto helped us, even saved us. We ran into Orochimaru, and Naruto did well against him, very well. He destroyed his sword, the Kusanagi. We then ran into the Sound Genin, and from what Shikamaru told me, Naruto killed them by sticking them in a grid lock. We then came here." Kakashi nodded his head in surprise and made a note to speak with Naruto after this section of the test. Sakura scoffed, obviously unconcerned, while Sasuke had a serious expression on his face. "At least one of you two learned. Now then, I will have a word with you later, but for now, rooms have been prepared, and you two better not disturb Naruto, as you remember Wave, don't you?" he said, turning to Sakura. All Asuma and his team could think was, what goes on in Wave? With Naruto saw Anbu as he was making his way down a hallway to his living quarters. He approached the Anbu and inquired, "Is Hokage Samahi in the tower? Can you take me to him?" After giving him a nod, the Anbu leads him to a location within the tower. The office. When Naruto and the Anbu arrived, the Sandaime and his assistants were going through some documents. He nearly had a heart attack when he looked up. "Minato? No, he has passed away. So who is this?" Hiruzen pondered. "What do you want and who are you?" Kaharu asked impolitely. "Whoa, you old bat, I'm shocked you don't recognize me. Given that you make my life a living hell every day," Naruto grinned and replied, which made Kaharu blush. "Is that you, Naruto? What happened to you?" inquired Hiruzen. Reaching into his coat, Naruto pulled out what was left of the Kusanagi and threw it onto the desk before leaving the room, leaving 4 shocked people in his wake. "I'll tell you what happened after the exams, Gigi. I just came to give you a gift that might get you in good spirits." Hiruzen is stunned to see the remains of his student's weapon, the Kusanagi, in front of him. He looks up and notices the Anbu still in the room. Get the clan heads here tomorrow for the second part of the exams. If my hunch is right, then they want to see this. Hiruzen continued, still perplexed. Preliminary Chunin exam one day later, when Hinata blushed and thanked Kami that Naruto had made it, the genin who had passed stood together and waited. Kiba saw the expression in her eyes and resolved to ruin Naruto in front of her if they got into a fight. I welcome all of you, those who made it past the second exam. Since I can't recall his speech, we'll move on to the first match selection. The Hokage moved forward, standing with the other Jonin and clan heads in front of a large statue in the shape of the ram sign. The names flashed across the screen until two appeared. First game. Akado Yoroi versus Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto was thinking, this just reeks of the council's doing, wanting to show off in front of the foreign ninja. Sakura looks at the board and thinks, Sasuke-kun can't fight, not this early. As Naruto and the other genin approached the catwalk, Kakashi told Sasuke, you can't use your chakra in this match, or the seal will react. Hayate, the prelim proctor, held up his hand in the air, glanced at both competitors, and then said, are both fighters ready? If that happens, the match will be stopped, anyway. Sasuke simply nodded his head and kept moving toward the center. He said, begin. After receiving confirmation, he lowered his arm in a chopping motion and leapt back to avoid being struck by the fighters. He's desperate, he won't win that way, Naruto thought as Sasuke charged toward Yoroi with his kunai at the start of the match. Avoiding the kunai swipes, Yoroi struck out with his blue, glowing right hand, like a chakra scalpel, and grabbed Sasuke by the shirt, noticing that he was losing strength. He was able to get Yoroi off of him and gain some distance from his opponent, but Sasuke's vision was becoming blurry, so he grabbed him by the hair, and the Uchiha saw and said, you're stealing my chakra. Yoroi laughed and replied, yes, I am able to steal the chakra of my opponent, and added to myself, you're finished. Knowing that he was unable to use chakra or jutsu, Sasuke had a flashback to his fight with Lee prior to the start of the exams. He then ducked beneath Yoroi's protection and kicked him in the face with his heel, sending him flying. Lee noticed what he was doing and remarked, he had his Sharingan active when we fought, but to see him perform it is something else. Naruto reflected, still, the Uchiha are copycats, but to steal Lee's hard work is wrong. After observing the reactions, Sasuke declared, I may have taken the first part, but from here on out, it's all original. He used his middle and index fingers to paralyze Yoroi, then swung his right arm at his face, which the arm blocked. With momentum, Sasuke kicked Yoroi in the stomach, sending him to the ground. After noticing that Yoroi was unconscious, Hayate yelled, winner, Sasuke Uchiha. Yoroi was pulled from the impact crater, and Sasuke collapsed onto his ass. With Kakashi at his side, he said, let's get that mark sealed away, shall we? After that, Kakashi and Sasuke fled. Naruto overheard Ophelia remark, how did he replicate that move? You can defeat him in taijutsu if his body isn't able to keep up, but Sasuke has a bloodline called the Sharingan Mirror Copy Wheel Eye, which allows him to copy any nin, gen, and taijutsu he sees while it's active, Naruto retorted. Naruto looked to the board and saw the next pair of names, sensing that Ophelia was happy with the response. Kankuro versus Masumi Tsurugu is the second match. As Kabuto's other teammate in the makeup, wearing sand genin walked down to the center stage, Kankuro smirked confidently, his opponent's face obscured by the mask and glasses. Hayate glanced at them both and inquired, are both fighters ready? When he saw their affirmations, he swung his arm down and said, then let the match begin. He then leapt out of the way, and Kankuro said, this will be over quickly. Masumi then hurried over to him and, in an odd manner, wrapped up Kankuro, who only had time to throw the bundle away from himself. Masumi laughed as he said, I am able to stretch my body using my chakra, turning my bones softer. Kankuro simply scoffed and said, yeah right, you don't have the guts. Masumi seemed to be angry, and he snapped Kankuro's neck with a single move. Sakura said, he actually broke it. Masumi sneered, thinking he had won, as he saw his head snap up, with part of his face missing, revealing what appeared to be a wooden person. His clothing was torn at the sides, and 6 arms sprang out, wrapping around Masumi in a very familiar manner. The puppet then laughed, before saying in Kankuro's voice, well, that was fun, I wonder how soft your bones would get if I broke them all. The bundle Kankuro carried began to unravel as the puppet squeezed Masumi tightly and broke every bone from the neck down with an audible crack. Hayate said, winner, Kankuro. Naruto thought, he hid himself inside bundle, and controlled the puppet, making it look like it was him, not a bad idea. After the medics carried Masumi away, the board examined the names and came up with two that the Leaf Ninja knew would never be heard from again. Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka is the third match. "Hey, Ophelia, what was Bladehenge like?" Naruto asked, not even bothering to listen to the two girls as they made their way to the center stage. "It was a great land, full of excitement," Ophelia replied. "The war caused a lot to happen, but the land was returned to its former glory. Every night, there were parties on the beaches, and metal music could be heard all around. I assure you that Eddie felt completely at home." "Wow, that sounds amazing, but who was involved in the war?" asked Naruto. "In theory, there were three factions," Ophelia retorted. "The first was Ironhead, which Eddie organized as an army composed of Bladehenge's free people and other human groups he recruited along the way. The Headbangers, the first band Eddie signed, are the source of its name. The Drowning Doom, which I led myself, was the second. Anyone who fell into or drank from the Sea of Black Tears was included in this motley crew. The final faction, however, was the worst. Under the leadership of Emperor Doviculus, it was known as the Tainted Coil. Doviculus was at the top of the twisted hierarchy, followed by Battle Nuns, Overblessers, and Warfathers, while everyone else was at the bottom." Naruto exclaimed, "Damn, it must have been crazy then," in shock. "It was, but eventually the land was freed and our people saved," Ophelia said with a nod. The subsequent celebration, which lasted for days, was unbelievable. Eddie was a skilled thrower. "He must have been one hell of a guy," Naruto thought with a smile on his face. "He was, and it seems you have some business to take care of," Ophelia responded. Naruto looked at the board after being shaken out of his reverie and noticed. Ten vs Naruto Uzumaki in the 7th match. I don't know her last name, and Kiba got his ass handed to him after fighting Tamari. Naruto witnessed a hapless Rain.Nin being taken away on a stretcher. Then he heard Tenten say in a very seductive voice, "Hey sexy, hurry up and get down here." "Now why would I keep a very cute girl like you waiting?" Naruto asked as he made his way to the center stage, making Tenten blush uncontrollably. After receiving confirmation, Hayate asked, "Are both fighters ready?" He then jumped out of the way and said, "Then let the match begin." "Show me what you got, blonde." Tenten suddenly brandished a blue katana and charged at Naruto, who, never one to let anyone down, took out Elemental and unwrapped it. They sprang at one another and met halfway. They leapt back as the swords clashed, sending sparks flying. When Naruto brought an Elemental to his chest, his sword's fire skull began to glow and eventually burst into blue flames. Everyone in the room gasped at this. Then he swung the blade, sending a stream of flames directly at her. She evades it and prepares for another. With a sly smile, Naruto eliminated Sinner. The sword went into reverse grip as the flames subsided. The blade simply crackled with electricity as the lighting skull glowed. Everyone is shocked by this once more. He abruptly vanished, and Tenten searched everywhere but was unable to locate him. Then, with a wave of lightning trailing the blade and barely escaping, he materialized above her, aiming for a downward cut. However, the Naruto behind her presses Elemental against her neck as she walks straight into the other Sinner. She had just lost. Sarutobi and the council were in awe of Naruto's fighting skills, and even Anko was thinking, "Damn, that kid is something else. I hope I can train him for the next round." Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Hinata was already on the catwalk when Naruto approached him, holding what appeared to be a tiny jar. When Naruto noticed a small cut on his hand, he saw the salve in the jar and applied some to the wound, which quickly sealed up. She then said, "Here, this is for you. I made it myself. It should help on those wounds of yours." He replied, "Nice work. Ever thinking of being a medic.nin? You have potential with salve like this. You being cute just makes even better for the job." The praise caused Hinata to flush deeply red, but she managed to remain conscious. "You still have Neji, as well as that sand guy as possible opponents, but whatever you do, don't fight Neji," Kiba said as he approached her. However, he was interrupted when a gasp from the catwalk caused everyone to turn to the board, a sight that shocked Hinata. Hinata Hyuga vs Neji Hyuga is the 8th match. Even Kiba had a terrified expression on his face when Hinata saw the board, and her blood ran cold. Please let her make it out of this alive, Naruto thought, observing Hinata's distressed expression. Why is Naruto so nervous? Sakura asked him. What has been going on with him recently? Hayate asked. Will the two competitors please come to the arena floor? Guy glanced at Naruto and thought, he must be worried about the Hinata girl, and he has every right to, given that Neji won't stop until he kills her. Neji said, this is quite fortunate, isn't it, Hinata, Sama? I get a chance to crush your worthless life, right here and now. Hinata winced, and Naruto gripped the railing angrily as they stood facing each other. Then Neji went on, "You are weak. You only came into this exam to aid your teammates, am I correct?" Hinata shook her head, responding, "No, I entered to have a chance to change myself, to grow stronger than I am." Neji sneered, "You can't change yourself, you're weak, and that will never change." Sakura heard what sounded like breaking metal next to her. As Naruto's hold on the railing grew stronger, she turned to see it literally being twisted. As though to reflect the same anger he felt, black water gathered and began to boil at Naruto's feet. The strangest thing happened next. They heard him sing, and the song itself gave Hinata more strength. After hearing everything, Hinata's back straightened and her eyes glowed with assurance. When Neji saw this, he wondered, how can a simple song give her such strength? The other Jonin, Kurenai, were in awe. They knew Naruto could motivate someone, but not in this way. Hinata activated her Byakugan and said, "You can't scare me, Neji. Nissan, I will make you see just how wrong you are about me." What was surprising was that she never stammered. Ino, Tamari, and even Enko were moved and thought, if only someone cared about me that way. Hinata shocked everyone by saying, "I couldn't agree more." Neji frowned and said, "Let's get this over with." As Hayate said, "Let the match begin," and leapt back to avoid being struck, Naruto grinned. When Hinata and Neji charged at one another, they began to trade blows that appeared to be mild to those who had never seen Hyuga before. Naruto remarked, "Not bad." Sakura retorted, "How is that not bad? She barely scraped him." Hinata swiped her at Neji's side. Naruto glanced at her and replied, "A single scrape is all that is needed, as unlike how Lee fights, where it's all about breaking bones and bashing skulls. The Hyuga could kill you with a single tap. It's why their style is called the gentle fist." Guy approached them and replied, "He's completely right, it is because of that the Hyuga are considered the strongest clan in the village when it comes to taijutsu." Sakura turned to face Naruto and noticed that he was concentrating on the match, more specifically, Hinata. Guy noticed this and reflected, based on the report Kakashi provided following the wave mission, it appears that Naruto has changed from what the Jonin knew about him at the academy. His fear for the girl is evident in his eyes. To be young and in love. Neji appeared to have the upper hand because Hinata was the only one harmed by anything that was thrown at him. Neji took hold of her arm and pulled back her sleeve, exposing dark spots, and grinned, saying, "Just give up, you may be confident, but you are still weak." He continued, "You never saw it coming. I blocked your tenketsu from the beginning. Just give up." With a startled expression on his face, Naruto said, "Oh god no, don't tell me he's actually going to." Sakura turned to face him and asked, "What's going on? Why are you freaking out?" Naruto said, "Hinata is from the main branch of the Hyuga, while Neji is from the cadet, and neither side has had the most pleasant of experiences with the other. The rift has become so bad, that I believe Neji may actually try to kill her." When Guy saw the sheer terror in his eyes, Hinata fell to her knees and Neji charged directly at her. Everyone in the room witnessed what appeared to be a black blob land in front of Neji, his hand obstructed by the water, and they all heard a loud, "Oh god no, please not again, never again. I won't lose someone else." Tendons of water rose from Naruto's feet as he stood in front of them, holding the water aloft. It was impossible for anyone not to wonder, what the hell happened to him? He has the power of the tears, so that's how it happened, Orochimaru, disguised as a Jonin, thought. Neji noticed Naruto's expression, which was one of pure rage and hatred. When the Jonin restrained Neji, Naruto said, "Not another step, or I will kill you, you bastard." Sarutobi wondered, is this the fox is doing? Naruto and Kurenai immediately turned to Hinata as she completely collapsed. Naruto was thinking, "Oh Kami please, not again, don't let this happen again." Both Ophelias heard his thoughts and saw what was happening when Kurenai gasped after unzipping Hinata's coat and said, "She's in cardiac arrest, he really was trying to kill her." And it would be an understatement to say they were incensed. Naruto yelled, "Get those medics out here now damn it." Naruto nodded and said, You really did Hinata-chan." Hinata grinned as she passed out and was carried away by the medics. "Did I change at all?" Hinata asked as the medic team hurried out. Everyone felt a strong sense of killer intent after she left, and Naruto got to his feet. The water's tendrils reappeared and seized Neji's neck. Neji shook his head quickly, and everyone, including Orochimaru, shivered in fear as he said, "You better pray Hyuga, that she makes it out of this alive, because if not, I will personally see to it that you end up in the grave." Is that understood? The only ones who weren't were Ino, Tamari, and Enko. "My Kami, so cold, so commanding, so hot," Enko thought. He would go so far to defend her. God, I wish I could find someone like that. Ino and Tamari thought, I really want to spend some time with this kid now. Kankuro and even Gaara withdrawn from their sister. His Biju was cowering, almost screaming in terror, when Gaara heard it. After dropping Neji on his ass, Naruto turned to leave, the tendrils vanishing. Naruto watched Kankuro approach him nervously as he sat where his team was. Naruto's face darkened as he said, "I'll kill that bastard, no matter what." Kankuro shivered and walked back to his team, thinking, "Geez, that kid is really pissed. Man, that last fight was crazy, huh? What do you know about that Neji kid?" Kankuro asked. He thought, "I hope Temari doesn't try." However, he saw Temari approach Naruto and take a seat beside him. Naruto turned to face her icily and said, "She can sit where she wants, as unlike you, she's trying to be nice. Now why don't you leave Emi alone for once?" Sakura responded, "Get away from him." Since they had never heard him say anything unpleasant or nasty to her, everyone who knew Naruto was in awe. While they watched the next match, Temari sat closer and asked, "You seem upset about what happened to that girl. Mind telling me about it?" Naruto looked at her and said, "Maybe later, too many years." Temari nodded and said, "All right. You don't mind me sitting here, do you?" Naruto simply shook his head and said, "Not at all, stay as long as you like." Temari smiled and sat next to him. Rock Lee vs Gaara is the 9th match. After being summoned by Diophilia, Temari looked at the board and said, "I hate to say it, but that Lee kid is not gonna make it out of here in one piece." Naruto looked down and said, "Lee's tougher than you would think, just watch and see." Someone gave him a back hug as he crossed to the right side of the field. "Why ask for the visit?" he asked, turning to face Diophilia, who ushered him to a log that was lying down and patted a seat beside her. After that, she said, "We saw what happened, and after this, prelims you called it, we'll be teaching you how to command the army of the Tears, the Drowned Doom. But to know of them, we need to teach you about the factions themselves. We've compiled a guide on the 3 factions, here." She handed him what appeared to be a notebook, and when he opened it, he saw a page on the Drowned Doom with a description and a picture of each unit. The first entry said, "Gravediggers. The infantry of the Doom's bread and butter. Although you get more per squad, a single gravedigger is not as strong as a soul kisser or a headbanger. Because of the numerical advantage, they are good to start with, but you should stop using them later on to avoid having your army overrun with inferior units. It's okay to double team with them if you want to be cunning, but it takes too long and doesn't deal enough damage to be useful in combat." He saw an image of what appeared to be a group of teenagers, all of them sporting the fallen raven with an ankh that served as the faction's emblem. Their hair was matted, and they each carried a shovel. He continued reading. "Bride. The bride should never be undervalued. Your army's success or failure depends on how well you use this unit. 3 brides are the most you can have, and their effects stack. The enemy will therefore be traveling at a quarter of their normal speed when 3 brides are present. This implies that they will attack at a quarter of their typical pace. That's really powerful. Depending on how you feel about Friedwigs, brides should be the first unit to receive the upgrade treatment as soon as it becomes available, if not the only one. By double teaming with them, the bride becomes a lightning rod in her own right, gaining access to their lightning defenses whenever she wants in addition to the passive bonus she already has. As far as I can tell, upgraded brides receive stronger lightning along with their slowing bonus sticks, which is very helpful." He came across a photograph of a woman wearing a wedding dress, holding an umbrella, and being chased by a storm cloud. Friedwig. Compared to Razor Girls and punishing parties, Friedwigs have a little more range, which allows them to hit a few more targets before the enemy can shoot back. They are also quite durable. That's about all you can say about them when they're alone, but Friedwig has another potentially harmful trait. Ophelia can throw the Friedwig at an enemy thanks to their double team, and the Friedwig then seizes control of that unit. The Friedwig will be on your side until either the Friedwig or the unit dies, and a portion of the damage dealt to the unit is split to the Friedwig. Any unit can be taken, with the exception of Bleeding Death, Tick Choppers, and the Coil's Hierarchy class, so having a few Friedwigs around will pay off greatly in the late game. This implies that you can have Ironhead's Rock Crusher for just 1 Friedwig. You can ease your life by taking one of the dreaded Heartcutters that the Tainted Coil is bringing your way. All he saw was a photograph of what appeared to be a woman's head. It appeared to move by using its hair as legs. Radgut. Definitely eats the infantry of the enemy. Hey, what did I do that? But really, enemy infantry is useless if you have 2 or 3 Radguts in your army. The Radgut has a strange reload action where he redevers his mice before coughing them up again, but if you double team with one, the enemy infantry won't even touch you and you can control the hordes of vermin in their attacks. Radgut and Brides essentially put an end to infantry. They're better than Reapers, in my opinion. He saw a picture of a man with a bang of hair on his head, a black coat, and an enlarged stomach. Your weapons and swords have been made dull by the Organist. This guy enjoys the way his name sounds, and he has a good reason. The Organist reduces the damage caused by enemy attacks. Never leave home without one because, for obvious reasons, it can literally save your life. The bonuses stack, in my opinion, but if you already have 3 brides, you probably don't need any more. However, if the bad guys sneak up on you, feel free to leave one back at base to prevent them from doing too much damage. You can take direct control of enemy units by using the Organist's double team, but doing so will leave you idle for a while, so I wouldn't advise doing it for anything. He saw an image of a spectral person operating a big car that was modified to resemble a gigantic organ more than anything else. Lightning Rod. Essentially the Doom's take on Ironhead's head splitter, the Lightning Rod allows you to charge your adorable frying companion so that his lightning arcs across several foes. I don't have much to say about him aside from the fact that he's a good vehicle for crowd control and ranged damage. On top of a big car, he saw a man strapped to a chair with lightning arcing off of him. The Reaper, a swift trooper that races across the battlefield and drains infantry life, is another piece of destroyed infantry. I never bother with more than one enemy because, despite his strength, he only attacks one at a time. Ratguts surround their targets with an area of effect. Their greatest abilities are unlocked through double team, though, where they force enemy troops to stop attacking and just begin fleeing, a recurring theme with the Doom. You can harvest some of your own souls if you practice swinging the scythe like Ophelia does. Double teaming with a Reaper is entertaining, at the very least. He saw what appeared to be a man on horseback, with a big scythe in his hand and a ripped cloak on. Brood. Well, once you have this unit, the Drowning Doom is impervious to any more Fire Baron rushes that your adversaries may attempt. This unit disassembled vehicles like it was no big deal, is inexpensive, and takes up very little space in the infantry. Taking a few of those eerie piranha dolls with you helps you quickly eliminate the enemy vehicles as they wheel around the battlefield in their baby carriage. When you double team with a Brood, you can drive and set up the Mamakaze attack. It's helpful, but don't waste it because you'll lose the Brood. However, Mamakaze will tear them to pieces like nothing if you need to take down a group of enemy vehicles, such as a few Thunderhogs at the rear of an enemy army buffing them. Limit 1, Dirigible, because you'll never need anything else. A mobile fortress weakening machine, the Dirigible is not to be confused with Dirigible. Take a look at the beautiful effects it creates on the surrounding ground. The Dirigible will weaken any enemy merch booths that may be within its range, making it much simpler for your troops to take them down. This even applies to the enemy stage. Your army will be doomed if you bring a Dirigible to the battlefield with them. When 2 people work together, this fun machine soars through the air, out of most enemies' grasp. After that, you can use funeral urns to bomb the field, showering it with ashes that will help your men heal and eat away at the enemy. Treeback. Among the 3 factions' ultimate units, the Doom's last unit is regarded as the weakest. And, well, in many respects, it is true. The Bladehenge solo, which truly terrorizes, is created by double teaming, and the Rock Crusher kills everything in its path while moving and buffing nearby troops. Well, the Bleeding Death is a damned bleeding death, and the Coil has it. Don't let that deter you, though. Treeback is a ranged platform for his crows, which will rip through enemy infantry and vehicles alike, but he lacks the other super units' sheer power. His true form, the largest unit in the game, is revealed when you double team with him. For fun, this guy wrestles hate cages. Both infantry and small vehicles will perish as Treeback stomps around in his full form. He came across an image of a big animal with a tree perched on its back, surrounded by crows. In addition to their special and sometimes very helpful solos, the Doom has all of your typical solos, including Fan Tribute, Summon Flag, Rally Army, and Summon Vehicle. Silence. A straightforward solo that prevents the adversary avatar from giving commands or strumming their guitar. Don't undervalue this solo. If used properly, it can inflict a great deal of suffering on an opposing army. While you stealthily move your army toward their stage, your adversary may send their army after a merchandise booth. Enter, play Silence, and then take on their stage with a bang. In addition to being prohibited from solos, the enemy avatar will be unable to command their soldiers to return and defend the base for approximately 30 seconds. Very helpful if you're a quick learner. When defending a position, use Black Tear Infusion. A Black Tear Infusion will keep your army alive a little while longer if they have just been hit by an enemy rush and you need to hold the choke point while you upgrade your stage or recruit some better men. It also looks pretty. The Doom's version of Ironhead's Face Melter and the Coil's Curse, Shadow Blast, debuffs the enemy. This is helpful if you use the solo close to a larger foe, but by the time you finish the solo, you're usually already focused on taking it down. When your army is charging forward, Use it against something like an overblesser, then jump back out of the chaos so that its weakened attacks can inflict less damage on your troops rather than you. A significant amount of damage is caused by the explosion itself. One of the Doom's strongest solos is Encompassing Gloom. Encompassing Gloom completely stops the enemy's unit production. Compared to Ironhead's Rock Block, which is only applicable on stage, this is far more helpful because it allows the Tainted Coil to breed on the field without any hindrance, whereas Encompassing Gloom seems to depress the coil's mood to the point where they don't even feel like giving birth to soldiers. Using this while marching on an enemy stage essentially means they will die, and using it while defending will give you some time to regroup and prepare for a big attack. Those poor demons, I hear you say. In general, this solo is very helpful, so use it to your advantage. A bit of a strange solo, Baleful Misdirection creates a phony unit that appears real to the enemy but doesn't actually deal any damage. Although you can play it and include the ghostly unit in your army, you won't be making the most of it. Making your fake a big, obvious one, like an Organist or Lightning Rod, and then sending it hurtling toward one of their fan geysers is the best way to divert the enemy's attention. The enemy will think it's an attack and send some guys down to fight it, but as you laugh at them and destroy the merchandise booth you were actually attacking, it will vanish. You're a fiend. Veil of Deceit. This solo is incredibly helpful, unless the enemy is nearby. Playing this makes all nearby troops invisible. This implies that you can approach their base at a trot and then launch a full-fledged attack out of the blue. Just keep in mind that if you play the solo in the center of your army, some people on the periphery might not be covered. But it can be funny to think of the enemy's reaction when they see that one bride you missed glide toward their stage and then have a whole army appear behind them. That bride just became much more attractive. Weeping Heavens. The Doom's destructive super solo, Weeping Heavens, is exactly what its name suggests. It works similarly to Bring It On Home, but with more tears and less fire. Can I say anything else? It crushes the villains, the heroes, and all the other idiots who haven't drunk from the sea of terror. He never imagined that he would comprehend the music notes for each solo, but he saw and recognized them on a page. He saw that Ironhead was the subject of the following pages. Units of Ironhead. The group's namesake and soul are the formidable headbangers of Ironhead. They have been compelled to break solid rock with nothing but their own thick skulls, while working in General Lionwhite's mines for years without any tools or equipment. As a result, two groups emerged among the headbangers. The headbangers, who join Ironhead, are deep voiced and tattooed, while the hairbangers, who have bright, styled hair and higher toned voices, support the brutality imposed on them. Razor Girls. Equipped with the explosive husks of the untamed Razorfire boar, Ironhead's adversaries suffer ranged death at the hands of the Razor Girls. They are better positioned in the rear of the battle because, when the squads are firing, they tend to clump into close groups, making them vulnerable to attacks from some of the larger units that use area attacks like Rock Crushers or Bleeding Death. With the assistance of the cunning roadies, Ophelia managed to save the Razor Girls from Lionwhite's Pleasure Tower. After Ophelia left the faction to launch the Drowning Doom, the Razor Girls stayed faithful to Ironhead, claiming they would be able to engage in direct combat with their former savior if questioned. Thunderhogs. Under the leadership of Killmaster, the solitary Thunderhog Riders are more concerned with repairing the damage than causing it. Like all bassists, Thunderhogs are naturally able to use their mystic mojo to win girls over. The goal of the outlaw human clan known as the Fire Barons is to live only for the next fight or drink. It's okay if you do both. They are members of the Ironhead faction and are led by the Baron. The Fire Barons thunder across the land, leaving an inferno of flames in their wake as they ride motorbikes that rip up the ground like crazy. They can effectively trap their enemies in a ring of fire by circling them, even though they usually just do this for fun. The Headsplitter. Based on General Lionwhite's legendary defensive installation in the Cleave of the Impaler, the Headsplitter is a ranged vehicle that is both powerful and versatile. The first offensive vehicle unit Ironhead can purchase is the Headsplitter. Surprisingly, it is among the few Ironhead pieces that Eddie Riggs did not construct himself. 3 Headbangers Reverse. Engineered it and added wheels and an engine after discovering a fallen piece of General Lionwhite's defense installations in the Cleave of the Impaler. In the main plot, the 3 can be seen preparing and maintaining their ride prior to stage battles. Based on this, it can be inferred that 3 headbangers are needed to operate the device, even though they are not visible on the unit itself. The ability of the Headsplitter to destroy vehicles is its most significant contribution to Ironhead. When it comes to fighting vehicles, Ironhead has a clear weakness because most vehicles have a ranged attack that eliminates both Fire Barons and Headbangers before they pose a threat, and Razor Girls cannot keep up with the increased enemy health until they are upgraded at stage level 3. None of these issues affect head splitters, which compensate for their comparatively slow firing rate by dealing enough raw damage per shot. With the exception of the Bladehenge solo double team that the Rock Crusher carries, it is also Ironhead's most long-range weapon. When these two characteristics are combined, the head splitter defeats every other vehicle except the Painlifter in 1-on-1 combat. Bouncers. A proud warrior class, the Bouncers make up for their lack of intelligence, patience, and basic social skills with strength and tenacity. Some claim that their cast iron battle fists conceal incredibly delicate, well-groomed hands. Roadie. The cunning roadies can generate enough feedback to topple even the biggest building. If you watched the introduction, you would understand why they are known as roadies, but it's unclear how something with that large of a speaker can remain hidden. Prior to being given their current name, the roadies assisted Ophelia in smuggling women out of Lionwhite's pleasure dome by way of the otherwise impenetrable cleave of the Impaler. Upon meeting them, Eddie equipped them with strong amplifiers from the Screaming Wall and made the decision to incorporate them into Ironhead's fighting forces. Metal Beasts. A vicious enemy in combat against infantry, metal beasts can only be subdued by the Zaulia's gentle touch. In the game, a single metal beast costs 200 fans, but they swiftly destroy infantry. Unfortunately, they are usually easy to kill by harassing enemy avatars, who will hang back and shock your metal beast before taking off when it approaches too closely. Double team with it for optimal combat outcomes, as Eddie will enable the metal beast to spit fire much more quickly. When it's time to deliver the metal to your adversary's front door, the Rock Crusher is the best portable stage available. Eddie sees a big rock crushing roller, one of the mine's tools, following the battle in the dry ice mines. He observes that, "And I like it," is a dangerous statement. He is motivated to construct a second, movable stage for Ironhead by this new finding. Consequently, Ironhead's most potent unit was established. Solos by Ironhead. Relic Razor. Among the numerous solos Eddie learns is Relic Razor. Discover the Titan's forgotten mysteries with this guitar solo. Nearby buried structures will react to the music and emerge from the earth. This is helpful for getting to motor forges all over the place where flowers grow next to buried Titan structures, among other things. Summon Deuce. The Summon Deuce guitar solo, also referred to as Drop a Deuce, will call the deuce to you from anywhere in the world. Walking almost anywhere would take an eternity in the single-player campaign, so this is really helpful. However, in multiplayer mode, where all players can fly and the Deuce cannot be upgraded with weapons and armor, it is essentially pointless. Even with its lack of improvements, the car can be used to control crowds by chasing down big groups of people. When a fan geyser is in danger, this can buy time for your units to arrive. Anvil of Burden. This powerful guitar solo slows down and prevents enemy avatars from flying by fastening the Titan's heavy anvil to their legs. Every avatar that is hovering over you will crash to meet their demise. Face Melter. Perhaps the most famous solo is Eddie Riggs' Face Melter guitar solo. In the brutal world, the Face Melter is so powerful that it will actually melt the faces of enemies in its path, unlike a face-melting guitar solo on Earth. If successful, it instantly kills the majority of enemy units within range, including strong units like organists and bouncers. Bring It Home. Eddie's solo summons a flaming zeppelin that will strike in the vicinity and inflict severe damage on anything unfortunate enough to be in its path. Battle Cry. With an uplifting solo, use your battle cry to inspire your surrounding troops to fight harder. For a brief period, all impacted friendly units will deal additional damage. Early in the game, during the Exploited in the Bowels of Hell mission, you learn the battle cry. The headbangers in prison are encouraged to join Eddie in rebelling against Lionwhite by the solo in this mission. When Eddie completes the solo, a flaming version of the sword appears in his left hand, and Lars' sword bears the tab for battle cry. Rock Block. When this solo is played, a number of large rocks that resemble Stonehenge are stapled together and pile up on the enemy's stage. As a result, the enemy is unable to call forth any units from their stage. Call of the Wild. Eddie Riggs calls forth the powerful creatures of the brutal world to fight alongside him when he plays the Call of the Wild guitar solo. When beasts are called forth in this way, they automatically support Eddie and Ironhead and can be double-teamed without first stunning them. Furthermore, friendly units will never be attacked by them. In the single-player campaign, the solo is unlocked by finishing the hunter's first Overslaughter hunting mission. From that point on, the animals that Call of the Wild summons are the ones that Eddie has killed in the most recent Overslaughter level. The creature that is summoned in multiplayer mode is determined by Ironhead's current technological capabilities. Light of Dawn. Remove the effects of the debuffs and buffs applied by the enemy. The sky turns orange due to this absurd number, beckoning the sun to Ironhead's aid. The buffs and debuffs of the enemy faction are no longer active while the glorious sunrise is out. The Drowning Doom's worst enemy is this solo. Units with tainted coils. Units of hierarchy. The Battle Nun. Aha! Knew it. Big ugly demon. Kinda sexy though, in a weird way. Eddie Riggs talks about his initial experience with a Battle Nun. The most prevalent member of the Coil's esteemed hierarchy class is the Battle Nun, who is lean, graceful, and lethal. Warfathers. The Coil's upper class is represented by the Honorable Warfathers. They use their unholy tomes to read prayers and then use those prayers to launch strong ranged attacks on their adversaries. Overblesser. In the hierarchy class of the Coil, the Overblesser is the only leader. From atop a hideous four-legged altar, he delivers fiery judgment on his enemies while marching uprightly across the battlefield. One of these altars was ridden by a Battle Nun, not an Overblesser, but Eddie Riggs used it to flee the awesome corpse pile after arriving in the brutal world. Minion units. Soul Kisser. The Soul Kisser is a scissor-headed maiden of pain who wears leather. Punishing Party. The Dominatrix's hatred of Doviculus's enemies is nearly as strong as their love for their slave. Ultimately, though, both receive the same treatment. Skullraker. Although he may have the mental capacity of a deranged child, the Skullraker possesses the body of a much larger and even more deranged child. They are a formidable presence, wielding their detachable head like a flail while attached to a chain. Despite their apparent lack of intelligence, they continue to praise Doviculus and deal serious harm to their adversaries. Screamwagon. The Screamwagon gives Coil forces encouragement and support. Warfathers summoned a support vehicle. Superior Warfathers offers a better version. The Screamwagon is an extremely effective mobile torture device that turns the pain of the unfortunate soul attached to it into potent benefits for the tainted Coil's soldiers. The wagon alternates between 3 different tortures, which results in 3 different buffs for allies in the area. Blasting the victim with flames speeds up the build speed of lesser units from hierarchy units. Stretching the victim on the rack gives the warrior a powerful boost in strength that increases the damage they can deal, and dousing the victim in boiling oil improves unit armor and reduces damage taken. While multiple Screamwagons set to different buffs will affect all units with all active buffs, duplicate buffs do not stack. In addition to their regrettable propensity to lag too far to the rear of larger armies, where their buff radius won't reach your front line troops, Screamwagons do require a fair amount of micromanagement to keep the best buff up for the situation. Once the battle begins, it's usually a good idea to jump aboard and move them to the center of your army. Keep an eye out because enemy avatars will tend to Screamwagons. Painlifters. Painlifters grow a defenseless creature known colloquially as the agony ball around a core of sharp, disease-ridden medical waste. The ball explodes when thrown at the Coil's enemies, showering the target with years' worth of accumulated pain. Heartcutter. The sacrificial hearts produced by the Heartcutter are chosen based on their ripeness, muscle mass, and blood flow. The Druids, who are generally relentlessly vicious, turned out to be more squeamish than Doviculus had anticipated, despite the fact that human victims were initially used. Hate Cage. The caged demon, who is merely a twisted lump of unadulterated hate, and the enormous, if mindless, legs are actually 2 separate creatures that make up the Hate Cage. Enormous infantry on the range. Liquid hate is spit at enemies by a caged demon. The hate will also soak into any enemies standing close to the cage, increasing their vulnerability to attacks. Tick Choppers. Usually useless in combat situations, Tick Choppers can only be called forth by a guitar solo. Sometimes, though, their distinct personality and lethal blood draining tick attack are ideal for a particular tactical scenario. Tick Choppers, however, only live for 2 minutes at most. They then destroy themselves. Consequently, an army made up solely of Tick Choppers cannot be formed. Bleeding Death. Prior to battle, the loathsome Bleeding Death is stuffed violently into its ballistic Iron Maiden cannon. When the Maiden is fired and the Bleeding Death is finally unleashed upon the battlefield, it brings with it complete destruction. Mortally perforated by its prison, the creature slowly bleeds to death, even while bringing destruction to its foes. Massive infantry engaged in melee combat. This unit doesn't need much, if any, strategy or tactics. It is a true, bigger hammer unit. All you have to do is drop your Bleeding Death in front of the opponent's stage or in the center of his attacking army. Coil Solos Tainted. Summon Chariot. From anywhere in the world, Emperor Doviculus can call forth his personal chariot in this solo. This isn't a very helpful solo, though, because Doviculus can only be played in multiplayer mode, where all players can fly, and the chariot cannot be equipped with armor or weapons. It does, however, look fantastic and can add to the drama of charging an enemy stage. Launch of Death. You must first enlist a bleeding death for the cause. Order in death from above. Following the purchase of a bleeding death from the stage, this guitar solo releases the bleeding death to start its rampage and summons an Iron Maiden onto the area you were standing in. The efficiency of the coil's ultimate monstrosity is both increased and decreased by this solo because bleeding deaths are impulsive and only present on the battlefield for a brief period of time. The Iron Maiden can instantly kill the majority of units and deals massive damage to anyone or anything in the vicinity of the landing site. If you don't move after the solo is finished, you'll die yourself. Summon Agony Boil. When Doviculus does it, it produces an Agony Boil close by. Similar to a proximity mine, the Agony Boil detonates whenever any enemy units in the area come into range. At first, it doesn't actually do that much damage, but with time, it will gain strength and size until its explosion can instantly kill the majority of infantry, headbangers, razor girls, and the like. You can use this solo to disrupt the enemy's geyser, claiming forces because you can access it right away without even upgrading your stage. Light a spark in the dark with Skies Ablaze. Overhead, lightning strikes, turning the air black. A dark red dust is gently blowing in the wind. The land appears to be hellish, as though everything has gone wrong, tainted. After the lengthy 3 months in Death's Clutch, the weather resembles that of Bladehenge until the last mission. As long as the weather is active, all ally units will deal extra damage the closer they are to the home stage. Useful in defending the stage, of course, but also helps to set the mood when you're about to claim victory. Chains of Hell. Playing this solo will cause nearby enemy avatars to be chained to the ground and unable to do anything for a small amount of time. Martyrdom. When this solo is activated, Doviculus uses his own heart as a guitar pick. Nearby units will be inspired and attack faster at the expense of leaving Doviculus on the brink of death until he regenerates. Curse. This destructive guitar solo creates an explosion of blood and gore to knock back nearby enemies. They are also infected and are dealt damage over time. Summon Tick Choppers. Summon Tick Choppers is a unique guitar solo that can only be played by Doviculus of the Tainted Coil. It becomes available after the first stage upgrade. Once played, this solo summons a squad of 4 Tick Choppers from your stage. After summoning them, they are under your command. The Coil's army must have room for the choppers before the solo can be played. They're great for rapidly harassing an opponent's merch booth, thus pulling away his avatar or forcing him to move units, shoring up an offensive in danger of losing momentum, and also extremely effective at chasing basic enemy infantry rushes off your stage. They're easily outclassed by pretty much anything tougher than basic infantry, but they're essentially free and can cause your opponent a real headache early in the game, so you may as well summon some up as soon as you absolutely can. Naruto finished reading, amazed at the info on all of the factions, but he noticed something. Where are the notes for the Tainted Coil and Ironhead solos? Ophelia sighed and said, "We never saw those, the only ones we have are from the Drowned Doom. If you find the other solos, I have no doubt you can use them." Naruto smirked and said, "Well, the Dooms certainly are impressive, and I can guess that they are actually zombies?" Ophelia nods and says, "Yes they are, each and every one of them." Disturbing, right? Naruto nods, but says, "Looks don't matter, whether or not they can fight is the question, and it certainly seems that way." Ophelia then says, "Well, it seems time's up, you're being called." She moves closer and says, "Try and stop by later, I'll show you how to use what you read, okay?" Naruto nodded, and hugged her, saying, "I'll be back, I just have some things to take care of." After he faded out, Ophelia thought, "He is way too much like Eddie, I wonder." Arena. Tamari nudged him awake, and said, "The Hokage is about to speak." Naruto looks up and sees Sarutobi had started to speak. "Due to many of you being here, the oh-so-great Civilian Council decided to have a 1-on-3 match for the remaining Rain.Nin against Naruto Uzumaki," said Sarutobi with a venom on the word civilian. The Rain.Nin are smirking up a storm thinking they got an easy win. Naruto, well, he got that devil's grin cemented on his face. Naruto jumped down to the floor and drew Annihilation and Demolition. Hayate said, "Ready? Fight." Naruto slammed his fist into the ground and shouted, "Earth Style! Pillars of the Wasteland Jutsu!" The floor shaked and hundreds of stone pillars rose out of ground. Naruto wasn't down yet, he made one hand sign and shouted, "Water Style! Hidden Mist Jutsu!" The entire floor was covered in mist, no one could see what was going on down there. All of a sudden they screams and explosions. In the mist before the screams, in a desperate search for the blonde boy, the Rain.Nin looked everywhere. When their friend screams out of the blue, they turn to see that he has cuts on his chest and bursts in front of them, scattering blood and guts all over them. When his teammate yells, "Help me," as the leader of 3 tries to figure out how to leave, he turns to see that he is being pulled away by some sort of black water. The leader leaps to his feet and dispels the fog. However, he then noticed Naruto standing in front of him, annihilation approaching with a downward slash. He barely had time to scream before he turned to dust and crumbled away in front of everyone after the blade slashed his chest. The eyes of everyone in the tower were wide with fear and shock. With a start, Hayate declared, "Winner Naruto Uzumaki." A few minutes later, each genin was given a box by Anko, and as they reached inside, they called their number. Hayate stated, "Now that you all have won, you will each reach into this box, and pick a number. This will decide who you will face in the finals." Neji. 2 Naruto. 1. His malevolent expression made everyone shudder. Gaara. 3. Kankuro. 5. Shino. 6. Temari. 7. Shikamaru. 9. Dosu. 8. Sasuke. 4. 1 remaining spot. Consequently, the lineup was created. Match 1. Neji Hyuga vs Naruto Uzumaki. Match 2. Sasuke Uchiha vs Gaara. Match 3. Shino Aburame vs Kankuro. Match 4. Dosu vs Temari. Shikamaru vs the 4th match victor. The dark expression on Naruto's face made everyone think that Neji Kid is a dead man. In fact, even Orochimaru felt uneasy when he saw that face. After learning that the finals would be held after a month's break, Naruto left. Unknown place. In the center of the clearing, Naruto came to a waterfall. Kin was burning her ninja headband when he approached the waterfall and went behind it. Naruto was staring at her when she turned around. "So what now?" she asks. Naruto turned to the entrance and said, "Right now, we need to check by the hospital, then the Hokage's office." Kin nodded, and she held tightly to his arm as they left the room. Both Ophelia and she thought she did have a crush on him. This is certainly interesting. Many of the villagers commented on the scene, saying things like, "The demon must be controlling that girl," or, "Why would any girl want to be near him? This sort of shit is over. While I may not give a damn about what happens to me, if you harm someone I care about I will make you suffer. Got it?" Naruto said as a tendril of water grabbed the idiot by the neck and slammed him against a wall after a stupid villager threw a stone at his head but missed and hit Kin. Every villager immediately moved out of the way, and nobody spoke. The receptionist was about to respond when Naruto asked, "Which room is Hinata Hyuga in?" as they entered the hospital, but she was interrupted when Naruto grabbed her by the neck and she saw the coldest eyes. "Why should I tell filth like you? Now get out of here before I call the Anbuda," she said. "I won't ask again. What room is Hinata Hyuga staying in?" Naruto asked, and the receptionist choked out, "Room 206. Naruto left her behind and followed Kin to the room. After knocking, Naruto heard the words, "Come in," and opened the door to find Hinata sitting up straight in the bed. "I'm glad you came," she said, looking at him. "The doctor said that if you didn't intervene, I would have died." Naruto sat on the bed, and Kin just sat off to the side. "Neji will pay for what he did. I swear it." Hinata held Naruto's hand and said, "At least leave him alive. My clan will kill you if you don't." Naruto sighed and said, "I will, if only for your sake." Kin laughed at the sight, and Hinata asked, "Who's she?" Kin replied, "My name is Kin, Naruto. Sama saved me from being raped by a former teammate." Hinata looked at Naruto, and he said, "Honestly?" With a sly smile, Naruto said, "I wish I could stay, but I must prepare for the finals." "Let's go, Kin. We have yet to meet the Hokage." Kin followed Naruto out of the room, and Naruto noticed Hiyashi heading toward the room he had just left. Hinata responded, "Well, I'm not surprised. You are the kind of person to do that." Naruto's eyes darkened as he said, "I am, and he will suffer for what he did. I don't want to hear any sob stories. He acted the way he did regardless of anyone else, and he will pay for it." Hiyashi said, "Fancy meeting you here. I assume you will be facing my nephew in the finals." Hiyashi became terrified and said, "All right, just don't kill him. The elders will be after you if you do." Hiyashi released the shiver he had been holding as Naruto snorted and left. Sarutobi felt a headache coming on as Naruto and Kin walked into the Hokage's office. Naruto responded, "I think it's time we talked, old man. I need answers." Sarutobi was weeping and asked, "About what?" Naruto responded, "My parents. I had an interesting experience in the forest, and I would like to know just who they were." Sarutobi blew his nose and replied, "It seems I can't keep it a secret anymore, huh? Well then, I guess I can tell you, after your little performance. Your father was our beloved 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, while your mother was Kushina Uzumaki. I can understand if you're upset, but your father made me swear not to tell till you could protect yourself." Sarutobi approached a safe concealed behind a photograph of the fourth and removed a set of keys after Naruto remarked, "And I proved it by how I acted." "I see." Sarutobi's headache only got worse when Naruto said, "I would also like Miss Kin here to stay under my protective custody, seeing as she can't trust her own village. These are the key to the clan estate, it's the most I can give right now, as the rest you will get when you make Chunin." Time skip. The day prior to the test, with Kin secure at home, Naruto stood before the sea of black tears. Naruto closed his eyes and considered how the guitar should appear as he listened to Diophilia's instructions. To form the guitar, you have to command the water in the same way as those tendrils you've been making. We're doing this by the sea as it will be easier to do. Now focus on the form and shape of the guitar, and let the water shape it. At his hand, the black water took shape, followed by his guitar's shape and finally the actual guitar. His mind was filled with information as soon as his hand touched the guitar neck. He recalled how Diophilia played each solo and whistled because it was a very ugly guitar. As he formed a special weapon to use and carried it on his back, just like Eddie used to do, Diophilia couldn't help but stare. He put the guitar on his back and began to walk. Naruto thought, "I have a good idea for when I face that bastard Neji." Diophilia and Ophelia began to smile and even laugh as he prepared his entrance. Compound Namikaze. Naruto was glomped as soon as he entered the room after walking through the door. "Must you do that, Kin?" he asked. The girl looked up and replied, "Of course, Naruto. Sama, I'm just glad you're home." Despite Naruto taking her shopping yesterday, Kin started dressing like a maid. He gave up trying to dissuade her. "Are the troops ready yet?" Diophilia asked, and Naruto answered, "They are. Thanks to info from Kin, Sound won't know what hit them. The invasion will be a true horror show." Diophilia's smile widened as she said, "Good, the girl is reliable, though I wonder why she acts the way she does." Naruto was nearly asleep when he saw Kin enter the room wearing only her underwear, and assuming he was asleep, he lay down on the bed beside him and fell asleep quietly. She might be here too if she had survived, Naruto thought. He had no idea that unexpected things were occurring. Arena on the finals day. A couple of Jonin stood guard as Sarutobi sat in the cage booth. Two of his guards were on either side of the cage as he approached. The cage laughed and said, "It was easy for me. Now if it were you, I doubt you could have made it to Suna. Have you picked a Godem yet?" Sarutobi laughed and said, "Sorry, I haven't yet, seeing as I have a few years left in me. Come, sit, there's a special performance before the first match." He said, "I'm glad you could make it. How was your trip?" In front of her are Kin, Sakura, and Ino, as well as the remaining rookies who did not make it to the finals. Kin shook her head when Ino asked, "Do you know when Naruto-kun will show up?" Sakura responded, "Why bother with that loser? Sasuke-kun will demolish the competition." Ino's eyes widened as she watched her rival dismiss her own teammate with such ease. "I hope Naruto-kun comes soon, and show them all up," Ino thought, and then she asked, "Has anyone seen Hinata?" But got no response. Sasuke and Kakashi stood beside them, watching the beginning. The exam's proctor, Genma, stated, "Unfortunately, one of our competitors died over the month, so the matches are slightly changed. Now would Naruto Uzumaki and Neji Hyuga please step forward?" Neji scoffed when he noticed that Naruto was not present, saying, "It seems he was all talk, what a failure." Kin became anxious as she searched for Naruto, but then she noticed something unsettling. The sky appeared to darken in a melancholy gloom as a slight fog began to roll in. A stage begins to rise up from the 6 figures in the middle of the arena. 5 of them were holding instruments, one was standing in front, and the final one was standing in front of the microphone. As the fog began to clear, Hinata and Naruto were visible. Everybody was staring at Hinata, or the person they believed to be Hinata. She seemed to be the anti-Hinata. She had on knee-high black leather boots. She was wearing a short, red dot and black schoolgirl skirt. She was wearing a black leather corset top that was the same color but had black accents. Hinata begins to sing as a piano begins to play. Naruto or Hinata? The rookies had a lot of questions after the song ended. Hinata was singing, but why? And how long ago did they arrange this? Let's go back a few hours and get 2 answers to that. Go back 6 hours before Hinata was standing in front of the memorial stone when Naruto woke up and arrived at his team's training area. He approaches her but pauses in the middle, grinning at his recent thought. "Hinata, do you like to sing?" he asked as he continued to approach her. Finish the flashback after that, Naruto leaps from the stage and approaches Neji and the proctor. Neji nodded his head in response to the question, "Are you both ready to start?" Naruto removed the sword from his back and declared, "Let's go." Genma nodded and said, Let the first match of the finals begin. Genma jumped back, revealing Naruto's attire, which is referred to as his Doom outfit and is what he will wear when he uses the Doom in combat, such as in the upcoming invasion. He was wearing a dark sweeping jacket, 2 sleek gauntlets, and a guitar with sharp fingers. Underneath, he wore what appeared to be a straight jacket, which is Alucard's black attire when he isn't wearing the red suit. He had steel-toed boots on his feet. He used to have blonde, bright hair, but now it was long and dark, almost black. It stretched until it ended close to the center of his back. His iris glowed a dark yellow, and his eyes were truly terrifying. Elemental Sin was on his shoulders, and Annihilation and Destruction were strapped to the small of his back. With a gloomy tone, he said, "What a disgusting creature you are, Hyuga. You once spoke with arrogance and pride, but look at you. You look as if you're gonna piss your panties." Neji's anger replaced his fear as he yelled, "And as I told you, and that pathetic excuse of a main branch member, fate has deemed me the winner of this battle, so just give up." Places. Sasuke and Kakashi watched the match from hiding near the back, both of them shivering in terror. Dear God, what has he become? Kakashi thought. Did he come this far because of his grief? I understand the song's meaning. He still laments the loss of that Haku girl. How much suffering did her passing cause him? Sasuke was trembling with anger and fear at what Naruto, the class Dobi, had turned into in just 1 month. Where did he get that power? He asked himself. To exact revenge on my clan, I have to take that power away from him. Kin was flushing profusely. Ino broke the silence by saying, "Holy shit, he looks amazing, yet so dominating." Sakura scoffed and said, "I don't know why he's bothering to look cool, and what kind of entrance was that?" It looked stupid. Hinata, having just sat down with everyone else, her was eyebrow twitching, finally turned around and shouted, louder than what even the pink bitch could pull, "Oh, would you please shut the fuck up? Honestly, every fucking day it's the same shit out of you. Either you praise that fucking Uchiha like he's god, or are you bad?" Mouthed Naruto. "Kun. Always saying he's the weak one, but guess what, bitch? At least he's down there fighting, unlike some piece of shit we are forced to know. And as for him being the weakest, even a fucking academy student could kick your ass. So take your bullshit and shove it up your ass, bitch." Hiyashi was wide-eyed and thought, that Haruno girl must have taken it too far. Thank God Naruto helped her confidence and had it the way it should have been. No thanks to the damn old fossils on our council. In unison, everyone in the stands exclaimed, "Dammmmmmnnn. That bitch got put in her place. Oh holy shit, that shy girl ain't so shy anymore. I wonder what Naruto.kun did to her to make her get like that." Kurenai shook her head and said, "Not sure, but I have to admit, I'm glad it happened." She then turned to Enko and asked, "So, since when was it Naruto.kun?" Enko fell silent and turned away, her face flushed. "Well, it's about fucking time someone did that, I swear, if I had to hear that pink-haired bitch one more time, I'd have fucking killed her myself, but then the council be on my ass, bunch of wankers," Naruto said, blinking owlishly and laughing in a way that is reminiscent of a certain British rocker that we all know and love. He threw a hand up, index and middle finger up, but curved slightly, palm facing him. Everyone, give the British middle finger salute. The Cage and Sarutobi were both laughing uncontrollably. The Cage said, "Oh God, my ribs, that was the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. I'm glad I was able to see this." Sarutobi responded, "Me too, my friend, oh God, that was priceless." Even the guards, Leaf and Sand, were laughing. "Now then, let us begin, and end this pathetic farce." Neji returned to his gentle fist stance and said, "For once we agree." Naruto held out elemental horizontally before the skull for shadow turned completely black. Naruto then raised his sword in the manner of Riku. Naruto abruptly disappeared and materialized above Neji. Neji was able to move aside, but he could only see a tiny crack where the impact had occurred. The blade then appeared to be a blade of shadow as Naruto swung it diagonally. Neji was sliced in two, or more accurately, the log he substituted for himself was. Neji was about to pierce Naruto's heart when he turned around, so he did. The audience watched in horror as the black water gathered and moved, reshaping Naruto's form without the coat. The straps of his straight jacket flailed behind him, and his sneer was so obvious that the collar could not conceal it. His yellow eyes took on a mad expression as he continued, "Is that all you got? What a loser, after all your talk, I expected more. You better give it your all, or I will fucking kill you where you stand." What the hell are you? You monster, you freak, stammered Neji, still terrified by what had happened. Naruto instantly pulled himself together and retorted, "What do you know about monsters, boy? Nothing, so stop pissing yourself." Neji's apprehension gave way to rage. "What do you know? Why do you defy fate? What do you possibly know of bearing a mark you can never get rid of, no matter how much you try, to have your life made into hell because of it? Answer me." Kakashi and the Jonin both thought, "Oh shit, this is not good," as Naruto lowered his head and tightened his grip on his sword. Slowly replied Naruto, "What do I know? Do you truly wish to know? My life has been hell. I was forced to run from mobs that hunted me down like a dog, praying to God that it would end. None of the shops would let me in, preferring I starved than letting me eat. Every time I tried to get close to someone, they get ripped from me, by either their parents, or something happens. And do you know what the worst thing about this was?" Neji sighed, continuing to be frightened quietly. That quickly changed when a tremendous amount of pressure filled the arena, bringing everyone inside, including Sarutobi and the Cage, to their knees. When they all heard what Naruto had to say next, it made them all shiver. Said, "I finally found someone, a beauty without compare. I loved her so, I thought that for once in my life, I could be happy. But no, your goddamn fate sought to correct that, didn't it? I had to watch helplessly, as she died in front of me. And then my heart sank. It was because of your damn fate, the fate of all who are cursed to hold one of the nine. To always be alone, to always be hated, and to always be forced to lose everything, before you even have it." The Genin were muttering curses, the Jonin and Shunin were bowing their heads. Hinata, Ino, Kin, Tamari, and to Kurenai's surprise, Anko was crying. Neji looked into Naruto's eyes and saw pure which he expressed, "And that is why I defy your fate, as it has done nothing but gave me hell from the very beginning. You whine over how you were mistreated, but there is a difference between me and you. You still have a family, while mine was taken from me before I even knew them. By God, I was so caught up in my own grief, I didn't even notice how Naruto was treated, so that's why the villagers always looked at him that way," Sasuke thought, his eyes wide. "I assumed he was responsible." Kin and Hinata were both crying and thinking the same thing. "Dear God, what pain has he truly been in all this time? I'll see to it that it ends." They exchanged glances and nodded without exchanging words. "This village has fallen far, if a young man is forced to endure this much grief," Sarutobi thought, even shedding a tear or two under his hat. "Time to end this." Naruto swung his sword over his shoulder and rushed forward, slamming Neji in the stomach and sending him flying. Immediately above him, with a hand on the handle, Naruto pushed Neji down with tremendous force, ramming him into his stomach with his own blade. As they collided, Naruto yelled, "The living end." A huge glowing cross marked the spot, serving as a tombstone. While in a crater with Neji, Naruto's sword had a blunt spot for the attack. Genma said, "Winner. Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto turned and remarked, "That's not my real last name, it's Namikaze." Genma nodded respectfully and corrected himself, saying, "Sorry, I meant to say, winner. Naruto Namikaze." As Naruto walked to the competitor's box, the audience fell silent. After that, Anko got up and started clapping, and soon after, other Jonin, including the Chunin and Genin who knew Naruto, joined in. Because they were so shocked by what they heard, the civilians didn't. As he reattached his sword to his back, Naruto let a tiny smile slip onto his lips. Box of competitors, as Naruto walked into the room, he noticed that Shino and Gaara both nodded respectfully. Tamari had an odd expression on her face, and Kankuro did the same. "Damn, you certainly gave a show, Naruto, so, was what you said true?" Shikamaru exclaimed, startled. Tamari chose to sit close to Naruto, who nodded and said, "Yes, every bit of it." Gaara took a seat beside Tamari. Tamari and Kankuro were taken aback when Naruto asked, "Isn't your match soon?" Gaara simply replied, "Brothers come first, even if they are not by blood." With wide eyes, Gaara responded, "No, at least I will not participate, as I can smell that the man in the cage booth is not my father." To Naruto's low-pitched question, "Will you still continue aiding sound in the invasion?" Tamari noticed the symbol on Naruto's back, a fallen raven, and thought, he prepared a countermeasure using his own troops? Naruto nodded and said, "Inform the Suna forces, otherwise, my own troops will kill them without mercy." Kankuro said, "I'll take care of it, Gaara. Try and stall as long as you can." Gaara nodded and went down for his match. "I can't believe it, at least he's letting us have a way out." Tamari nodded, but added, "Hurry back, okay?" Naruto grinned and disappeared in a whirlpool of black water. Naruto said, "I'll be back, I have someone I must see." Places, still amazed by Naruto's feats, Hinata watched as a black swirl materialized beside her. Naruto then reappeared wearing his black duster and a fedora hat. In a gentleman's bow, Naruto took off his hat and said, "I hope it was to your liking." Hinata nodded, saying, "It certainly was. I hope you beat that fade crap out of him for good." Kin glomped Naruto, saying, "That was great, Naruto. Sama, maybe later I can properly reward you." Naruto had the grace to blush and responded, "Maybe, we'll see." Then Enko's voice lost its usual playfulness as she said, "If you need anything, and I mean anything at all, I'm here, and I'm sure I'm not the only one." Naruto, his eyes hidden by his hair, said, "I thank you Enko-san, I'm glad you all support me for this." Enko appeared next to the group and hugged Naruto from behind, her breasts pressing into his back. "We got a lot to talk about, kid. I hope you come and see me after this whole thing is over." Naruto's blush deepened and he responded, "Sure, I just might." Then, while hanging on the wall, Naruto noticed Sasuke preparing the Chidori as he looked down at the match. He then disappeared in the same way he had come, saying, "It seems Kakashi still is playing favorites. I must take care of something, excuse me." Box of competitors, with a dark smirk, Naruto said, "They can do a lot of things. Staving off an invasion is child's play." Naruto went back to the box and asked Temari quietly, "Did your brother make it in time?" Kankuro returned and gave him the thumbs up, saying, "I took care of it." Naruto nodded and said, "Good, as your village will not suffer any casualties, but as for sound, well, there won't be any ninja left." Temari was wide-eyed and asked, "Your troops can take out a village?" When an explosion erupted and a smoke bomb detonated in the cage box, Temari watched as the Uchiha just approached the sphere of sand. The Kazekage and Sarutobi appeared on the roof behind Naruto, who said, "I'll see you later, I have a snake to destroy." They both turned to see him hold up a hand to his ear, revealing a microphone that resembled the one Enko herself used. Naruto turned and said, "So you plan to kill the old man, eh Orochimaru? Too bad for you. I plan to kill you here and now," he said, in a chilling voice. "All troops begin to mobilize. The operation is now commencing. Begin operation. Silence the noise, safeguard the leaf." The Kazekage laughed and ripped off his robes, demonstrating that it was Orochimaru. He continued, "My Naruto-kun, you certainly have changed. You seem more sorrowful. Is it because you landed in the sea of black tears?" Orochimaru laughed and remarked, "I had a suspicion, but now you just proved it." Naruto tensed up and asked, "How did you know that?" Naruto witnessed the guards being sliced in two by Anbu, and each of them revealing themselves to be the Sound Four. When Naruto spotted the group's red-headed girl, he reasoned that she must be Tayuya because Kin had asked him to look for her. Rewind. 2 weeks ago, Kin entered the room as usual, and Naruto was lying in bed. Naruto glanced at her and said, "Ask away." She lay down beside him and said, "I know you're awake. This is a favor I need to ask of you." Then Kin said, "There's a girl in Sound, she's my best friend. All I ask is that you get her out of there. Please?" Naruto asked, "What's her name, and what does she look like?" Kin said, "Her name is Tayuya. She has red hair and is known to swear worse than a sailor, but she is a good person." Naruto nodded, and he added, "If I find her, I'll be sure to get her back." "Okay." Kin nodded, her face flushed, and said, "That's all I ask." Then they both fell asleep. End of flashback. The massive stage that began to rise atop the Hokage monument went unnoticed. A dark gloom began to descend upon Ophelia's stage, as thunder roared and one of Naruto's clones stood at the microphone. The sun was replaced by a skull-shaped moon as the sky grew darker. Squads of gravediggers, brides, frightwigs, radguts, lightning rods, and a few organists were dispersed throughout the city, but none of the Sound Ninja were aware of them. An urn was held by a clone that hung off the side of a huge balloon-shaped vehicle that was floating high into the air. The dirigible, containing its pilot's corpse. Any Sound Ninja they came across were beheaded by a few groups of men riding horses and brandishing scythes as they rode out into the village. It wasn't until they turned and screamed that a few Sound Ninja passed by a tree that appeared to be dead. They didn't see the crows on it observing them or the clone that leapt on top of it, a figure emerging from beneath the ground. A few baby carriages were almost completely passed by another group before a few dolls leapt out of the carriage, grabbed their faces, and tore them apart. All of the clones in charge of each force division, including the one at the microphone, started singing. Despite a purple barrier covering the roof, Naruto himself joined in on the clones singing. Tayuya couldn't move because she had to keep the barrier up, but she was thinking, is he lying? As the song came to an end and he turned to the red-headed man, saying, "Kin wishes to see you, I don't want to keep her waiting. Is Kin still alive? I would kill the bastard, but it appears that guy will do it first. That bastard Orochimaru lied to me. Sarutobi, wearing black battle armor underneath, threw off his cage robes. He continued, I don't know what the hell happened to you Naruto, or where you gained all that manpower, but what I do know, is that we need to stop Orochimaru right here, right now. With a devilish smirk, Naruto replied. I couldn't agree more. I think Kin would enjoy a nice snake. Skin belt, I know I need one. Enraged, Orochimaru rushed forward, not realizing that Naruto had grabbed his guitar and that it had changed. As Naruto yelled, Drowned Doom Solo No. 6, Shadow Blast. Shadows gathered around his feet, and before Orochimaru could get any closer, they blasted outward, sending him straight into the barrier wall, causing a small crack. When using a Doom Solo, the guitar looks like Ophelia's, the same is true with Ironhead and Tainted Coil. Naruto's finger flew across the strings. He let out a painful scream as the barrier's wall severely burned his back. I wonder what fried snake tastes like, sneered Naruto, who then drew Annihilation and Demolition. With his blades pointing down, Naruto charged forward and swung it diagonally upward, barely allowing Orochimaru to keep up. He wondered, what's happening? Why am I being beaten up by this brat? He got an opening and punched Naruto in the face, but was taken aback when Naruto looked at him as if he had hardly noticed. It's like how it was in the forest, but now he's even stronger and I'm not even holding back. He remarked, is that all you got? I always figured you were a piece of shit, and you aren't helping by proving it. Naruto struck Orochimaru in the jaw this time, and he flew back into the barrier wall, suffering the same wound. Orochimaru had had enough and began rapidly performing hand signs. Sarutobi and the Anbu seated outside the barrier were both too stunned by the battle they were seeing. They didn't consider it broken until Orochimaru said, Summoning Jutsu. Impure World Resurrection. First, second, and fourth were the symbols of the three coffins that emerged from the earth. Naruto was startled when he saw the third coffin. The first, second, and fourth Hokage emerged from the three coffins. Hashirama said, My Sarutobi, you certainly have grown old. Minato said, You sure have grown son. I thought you had my color of hair? Naruto said, I did, until I took a little dip. But it's not important now, dealing with a certain snake is. 3 kunai, each bearing a seal tag, were displayed by Orochimaru. Enough of this petty reunion, it's time to end this. Naruto struck Orochimaru in the stomach with the flat end of his blade, sending him to the wall for the third time. This time, the wall broke under the force of the blow. Slowly moving forward, Naruto chopped off Orochimaru's right arm. Before using a chakra scalpel to pierce Naruto's neck, he had to sidestep Kabuto and raise his blade to decapitate the snake. Out of the 4 agents, 3 rushed to Orochimaru's side. Orochimaru said, I thought that was the plan. Why leave when we are winning? Kabuto shook his head and said, We're the ones getting massacred, Suna bailed on us, and Naruto had his own forces prepped and ready. We have no choice. He hefted Orochimaru onto his shoulder and said, We need to retreat, it's an absolute massacre out there. He turned to Tayuya and asked, What are you waiting for? We have to go now. Tayuya pulled out her sound headband and a kunai. And he replied, Oi shithead, were you lying when you said Kin was still alive? To everyone's surprise, Tayuya slashed her headband, demonstrating her defect from sound, while Naruto shook his head and said, I meant it, she personally asked me to find you. She was really worried about you. Naruto nodded and responded, Yes, I, Naruto Namikaze, place you under my clan's protective custody, along with 1 Kintsuchi. Well then, lead the way, Naruto was it? She asked. When he and the other cage felt a tendril of water on their necks, Minato was pleased to see his son maturing. The cages all felt their bodies growing more lifelike as they heard Naruto say, Through the tears, may you shed your false bodies, and regain your true ones. They were no longer in corpses, but rather in actual human bodies. When the remnants of the Sound 4 and Orochimaru disappeared, Naruto said, When I fell into the sea of black tears, the Kyuubi was devoured by the water, and in exchange, I gained strength, and the knowledge it once possessed. Tobirama, the Nidaime, asked, You used a technique to give us our bodies, how? Rewind. 3 weeks ago, there was a cage in here, before we changed the mindscape to include this area, said Naruto after hearing Ophelia call him down to his mind. The strange thing was, it was empty, but it had a large glowing orb in it, the water connected to it. What was in there? She asked. Naruto's eyes widened as he said, The only thing I can think of was the demon fox. It must have been destroyed by the water and left its chakra behind. Ophelia replied, Seems that way, I guess that's why you gained such enhancements. The fox must have been holding you back. Well, it seems like you'll have no problem from here on out. End of flashback. Hashirama, Tobirama, and Sarutobi were all wide-eyed, as was Minato. Holy shit, you mean that it was all you when you kicked Orochi Tami's ass in the forest? Tayuya asked. Naruto nodded and replied, yes, though I can access the chakra at any time, I'd rather not rely on it. Tayuya smirked sensuously and approached Naruto, swaying to her hips as she said, well, you certainly continue to impress, I like that. Let's hope you keep it up. Minato was laughing like his old master, and the other Kage was laughing too. Both Naruto and Tayuya looked at each other and flushed as their eyebrows twitched and they yelled, stay out of this you perv. Because of his poor timing, Jiraiya thought Naruto was Orochimaru because of his hair and pinned him down until Naruto used a clone to royally strike him in the face. When Naruto stood up, the clone saluted and said, operation complete, the sound has been driven out, and there were no leaf fatalities, as well as sand having only 1 or 2, as they stayed on sound's side. Can't say the same about the sound though. Gaara killed any sound ninja hidden in the stands, while Temari and Kankuro helped defend the civilians. Naruto nodded and said, excellent work, have the troops return to the sea until they are needed again. The clone saluted and then dispelled, having completed its task. He saw his student in person and turned around to see Jiraiya attempting to reverse a genjutsu. Naruto replied, I wouldn't bother, it's no illusion. Orochimaru tried to have the previous Hokages attack us, yet I stopped him from using the seal tag he would have used for bringing them under his control. Then I lopped off his arm, and Kabuto intervened before I could finish the job. Sarutobi was amazed and replied, Naruto, if it weren't for this attack I would have made you a chunin for how you performed in battle today. Hell, you should be a jonin if what I heard from your clone is anything to go by. You commanded an entire army in defense of the leaf. You have shown a prowess I have not seen in years. If you are not chosen to be a chunin, I will promote you myself. Now if you all excuse me, I have some duties to take care of. With a smirk that never went away, Minato turned to Sarutobi and asked, if it's that damn paperwork, why not use shadow clones for the job? Naruto and the others merely laughed as Sarutobi yelled, oh you son of a bitch. Stands. Sakura had witnessed the hell unfold and was shaken. The gravediggers were carrying the dead bodies of the sound ninja who had battled in the arena, their shovels smeared with blood that wasn't their own, and their faces were pleased. Lee was amazed, and Tenten had stars in her eyes. Dear God, I'm glad I'm not his enemy, Hiyashi thought. Oh my God, this can't be. He looked up to see Minato and the first 2 Hokage. Kakashi looked up and remarked, the council is gonna bitch about this one, as he saw Sasuke trembling with anger as they watched the doom vanish into a fog. Sakura had to say, oh God, that monster, he brought those freaks here, oh God. Hinata slapped Sakura in the face and said, they fought to protect this village and you call them freaks? I bet if your precious Sasuke did the same you wouldn't give a damn. So quit whining and be glad that you're alive. I sure as hell don't. Kin was laughing uncontrollably, and Hinata was laughing with her. Hana could only blush as Sume stood beside her daughter and remarked, geez, the kid pulled a real military move, he is one hell of an alpha. With Tayuya at his side, Naruto emerged alongside Kin and Hinata. He went on to say, Kin, Hinata, we need to speak in private. They nodded, and he placed a hand on each of their shoulders. Tayuya then held Kin's hand, which caused the girl to flush. Compound Namikaze. After turning his guitar and sword back into the dark water for the time being, the group arrived at Naruto's house and motioned for them to sit on the couch. Naruto was suspicious because Tayuya sat a bit too close to Kin. So, how exactly do you both know each other? I know you two were friends, but nothing other than that, Hinata said, leaning on Naruto's left arm. Kin looked down and said, Naruto. Sama saved me from being raped, and so my life belongs to him, but over time, like how I cared about you Tayuya, I began to care about him. Both Kin and Tayuya blushed, and Tayuya responded, well, we were in a relationship, but I was told she died, that's why I was helping the snake. Fag. She then got up and sat them next to Naruto, with Kin clutching his arm and Tayuya close to his waist. Then, Kin traced a finger down Naruto's chest and whispered into his ear, I'm by Naruto. Sama, and so is Tayuya. I know you're still grieving, and I won't press the issue, but we'll be here to help you, okay? Kin said, we'll be here for you when you're ready, no matter how long you may need. Then, leaving an agitated Tayuya, Naruto, and Hinata behind, Kin made her way to her room. Tayuya said, oh shit, that was the hottest thing I ever heard her say. She then looked directly at him and said, but she's right, we're here for you, me. Hinata here, that Enko woman, I can see it, we all want to help you. You seem like a nice enough guy, and if Kin trusts and cares for you so much, then I will show the same trust. You have proven worthy of it so far. So just say when, and we'll give you a night to remember. Then, with the sway never leaving her hips, Tayuya trailed behind Kin, winking at them at the door. They heard a knock on the door, and when Naruto went to open it, an Anbu said, "You are being called to a council meeting, they are expecting you. I am to take you there." Naruto nodded and said, "Understood. Let's go. Hinata, make sure those two don't make too much noise." The Anbu placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and left by Shunshin, as Hinata blushed profusely. The council room. When Naruto got there, the civilian council was glaring at him. He saw the shinobi council grinning at the civilians, but he had not yet seen the elderly man. Hashirama, Tobirama, and Minato followed Sarutobi as he entered the room. Both civilians and shinobi were amazed. A few even suffered heart attacks. Primarily civilians. Naruto held his head, his ears about to bleed, as the head of the Haruno clan screamed, "But how? They were dead, so they shouldn't be here." With a chilly glare, Minato said, "Shut up you bitch before you make my son lose his hearing." Sarutobi laughed at the shocked expressions and added, "And so we get to the reason as to why we are here. It is to fully reveal Naruto's heritage, give a deserving shinobi a promotion, and to make an announcement." Hiyashi inquired, "But how are they alive? We all know of their demise, so it seems impossible." Naruto responded, stating, "That would be my doing. During the second exam, I fell into the sea of black tears, which I doubt any of you know of. I mastered the use of the water and its many properties. The water even cleansed my body of the Kyuubi, leaving only its chakra behind, and under my control. Using the fox's healing chakra, along with the water, I was able to restore the cages to their former bodies, as they were resurrected by one of Orochimaru's forbidden jutsu. I merely made it where they were as if they never died. How dare you lie to us, demon? Your body cannot be cleansed, as we all know you are the fox." Minato appeared behind the fat fool, holding a Hiraishin kunai. The shinobi were shocked to have regained 3 of their best shinobi, but the civilians were not persuaded. Then he slit the idiot's throat and said, "You dare call my son the fox? You dare doubt Akage's mind? I hope you rot in hell for such ignorance." The body was removed by the Anbu. Naruto spoke up and asked, "Is something else here I'm needed for?" Sarutobi was looking serious when he replied, "Naruto, it is believed that you may possess the Rinnegan. It is a possibility, as it was shown to be an Uzumaki bloodline that was rare in the family." Jiraiya then offered his opinion, "It is only a possibility, as very few users have ever even existed, the first and only one being the Rakudo Sennin himself. I personally knew someone in AIM, but I hear he had it. Odd how things work." "Ophelia, I need you to do me a huge favor," thought Naruto in shock. "What do you need?" Ophelia asked. "Check my DNA to see if I have any bloodlines in my system." After a few moments, he heard, "You do, it's faint, but it's in here. If I'm right, then things are going to get interesting." As his control increased dramatically over the course of the month, Naruto closed his eyes and channeled chakra into them. Try having chakra in your eyes, might help bring it to the surface. The eyes themselves had a ripple like pattern, and the deep yellow had turned to a deep purple when he opened them. Then he heard, "It would never have been active if you had never mentioned it." "Thanks, Ophelia. Okasan, this means a lot." She blushed at the compliment and disconnected the connection. "I was lucky to even find it, it was that faint." Minato continued, "Well, congrats son, seems you now qualify for the CRA." Naruto's expression changed, and he replied, "Clan Restoration Act? Somehow this does not surprise me." Sarutobi responded, "You certainly are taking this well. But now onto our final business. Naruto, due to your battle prowess, and the excellent military strategy, we, as in myself, Hashirama, Tobirama, and your father made a unanimous decision, we hereby promote you to the rank of Chunin. Come by my office later to receive the jacket." "He shouldn't be a Chunin, if anything, it should be Sasuke. Sama that gets it," the Haruno woman said as Naruto bowed before departing. "You would go against the decision of 4 cages, all on the fact that they never picked one person? That is considered treason, something I can kill you for. I hope you realize that," Naruto said, clenching his knuckles dangerously. For the first time, the Haruno remained silent for longer than 5 seconds. After that, Naruto left the room, followed by the shinobi, cages, and civilians. Office of Sarutobi, with his father, Hashirama, and Tobirama already present, Naruto stood there anticipating Sarutobi's arrival. Naruto continued, "So, what happened when you fought Madara Uchiha? I always wanted to know." Hashirama laughed and replied, "The fool was a twisted mental case. I almost won against him, until he used his Sharingan to summon the Kyuubi. He managed to get away after that, and the fox was put out of his reach. And now his little pet is gone, permanently. Naruto nodded. And now his little pet is gone, permanently. Sarutobi came in and said, Naruto, I see that I'm getting on in years due to the invasion, so a new Hokage must be chosen. Naruto nodded. So who are you having me track down? Sarutobi smirked and said, you'll be going with Jiraiya to track down my last student, Tsunade, in 3 days. It will help us figure out where she might be before we send you out needlessly. Hashirama laughed and wondered how she would react to my presence. With a big smile on Minato's face the entire time, Sarutobi dismissed him after Naruto nodded and said, I'm heading home then, if that is all. Compound Namikaze. When Naruto heard Ophelia say, I might have an answer to your problem, he entered and took a seat on the couch. When Naruto thought, if I use it on Haku, then use the same restoration method I used on Father and the others, oh god, I hope it works, his eyes widened. Somehow, you copied Orochimaru's jutsu, it may have been the Rinnegan in your eyes, or what, but the seals are here. I hope so too, for your sake, Ophelia thought. Weight was placed on both of Naruto's arms as he awoke. He turned to see Tayuya and Kin, both wearing only a see-through shirt and a pair of panties, clutching at one of his arms. Ophelia laughed and remarked, I think it's cute, they really seem to like you, if they would dress like that. Naruto thought, if they're trying to seduce me, it's working. Not to mention that they have faith in you. Yeah, they really do, don't they? Naruto thought brightly. After making a shadow clone, Naruto promptly changed back into himself and performed his morning routine. He descended to the kitchen and began preparing a 4-person breakfast. Ophelia helped him kick his ramen habit, but he still occasionally eats a bowl or two. Tayuya and Kin awoke to the aroma of bacon cooking and rushed downstairs to find several Narutos arranging the table. While Kin was accustomed to the smell, she still had some drool on her lips, while Tayuya was drooling at it. In his Jonin garb, Minato strolled down and exclaimed, holy shit, that smells good. Tayuya chose to inquire later after noticing that Naruto was happier than he had been the day before. In order to get their initial response, Kin waited for Tayuya and Minato to finish their meal before they all sat down to eat. Tayuya's eyes widened as she bit into a piece of egg. Naruto laughed and remarked, well, let's just say I had a good teacher, and plenty of experience. Minato did the same, and as his eyes widened, they both exclaimed, this is the best food I ever ate. However, Naruto then became serious and said, hey dad, I was thinking, would it be alright if I brought help along with the mission? Replied, not a problem, who did you have in mind? Naruto blushed and replied, I was hoping to take Kin and Tayuya along, because if we're gonna get Tsunade, they could benefit from the training she could give. Not to mention they could help keep that perv in line. Minato laughed and replied, I see your point, Arrow. Sennin can be a handful at times. It would also help them in learning medical jutsu. God knows how many times Tsunade tried to start that medic program of hers. But lo and behold, Danzo kept getting in the way, saying that they can't afford it, asshole probably could fund it himself. As if what she had heard about Jiraiya were real, Tayuya was smiling, indicating that she, Kin, and Naruto would be spending a lot of time alone. Then she heard Minato say, the damnedest thing, there is some shrubbery out back, strange red plants, look kinda odd. It's in a clearing in the forest behind the house next to a strange rock. It was covered in symbols similar to Kin and Tayuya's old headbands. Minato responded, it's in a clearing directly behind the house, must have been there for years, it was all covered in those red vines. Naruto's eyes widened and he asked, exactly where did you see this? After finishing their meal and getting dressed, Naruto assured them that he would return shortly and that they would provide Tayuya with some clothing. It was justified because she borrowed from Kin. Naturally, when Naruto entered the clearing, he noticed a number of devil thorns. He heard Ophelia remark, by the Titans, it must be a solo tablet, to think we would find it here. Naruto took another look at the notes and saw, relic razor, odd, well, can't do anything but try it out. He pulled out Nevin and was ready to play it when, much to Ophelia's surprise, it transformed into Eddie's old guitar, Clementine. His fingers flew across the strings as Naruto strummed the guitar rapidly. The vines responded at the end of the solo, and a structure that resembled a garage emerged from the earth. When Naruto saw the door, he thought, that looks like it was meant for cars. He prepared the strings once more and played, Drowned Doom Solo No. 7. Summon Judge. Suddenly, a black and blue 1969 GTO Judge appeared, and Naruto jumped into the seat. The door opened as soon as he did. Pressing the accelerator, he sped through the open door and into what appeared to be a convoluted tunnel. He descended a ramp and landed on a stone platform at the end. It appeared to him to be a gigantic forge, with enormous giants at various anvils. He heard a long, wild laugh as soon as he got out of the car. A ball of lava landed on the platform and grew into the shape of a human as he turned to look for its source. The strangest person Naruto had ever seen was revealed when the lava solidified and crumbled. His eyes were hidden by dark glasses, and he wore a black biker outfit, several necklaces, and a couple of gold rings on his fingers. On the front of his chest was a cross. "Who the fuck are you?" the stranger and Naruto both said simultaneously. "Not exactly what I expected to come down here, but at least it doesn't have any demon flesh in the bumper. That's a plus. Looks a little grim. This isn't a drowned Doom car, would it?" "Oh god, the hell has happened in the world these days?" the stranger said, approaching Naruto's car. "So who exactly are you?" Naruto asked, feeling a tick on his head. Nikki finished inspecting the car and said, "Well, it looks ship-shape, did a good job of taking care of it. The last guy who came here had his car a mess, demon flesh in the bumper. Nicks and scratches all over the damn thing. I nearly fucking cried looking at it." The stranger looked up from inspecting the bumper and said, "Oh, me? I'm nobody, I'm just the guardian of metal. But just call me Nikki." Naruto responded, "Well, never knew what was gonna happen today." After giving it some thought, Nikki snapped his fingers and responded, "Yeah, if fact that was him, he could take care of his guitar, his car was another thing." Naruto chuckled, and the chuckle turned into full-fledged laughter. "Was the last guy someone by the name of Eddie Riggs?" Naruto asked. "Oi, what's so funny?" Nikki asked him as if he were crazy. Naruto calmed down and responded, "Well, it's because I'm related to the guy, that makes it funny." Nikki's eyes widened and he hastily dug through his pockets, taking out a variety of random items. Naruto even believed he had spotted a rubber chicken, but it was impossible. Nikki discovered what he was seeking. It featured the face of a beast and appeared to be a belt buckle. Its teeth were razor sharp, and it had big tusks on the sides of its mouth. The whole thing resembled chrome more than the rims of a wrapper. "What exactly is that? It looks nice, but what is it?" Naruto asked. "This is an idol of Ormageddon, the eternal fire beast. I tell ya, there are some crazy stories involving that sucker. This particular one was the one Eddie himself wore. It helped to bring out his inner power, and what got him to the brutal world in the first place. Seeing as you're like a lost grandson or something, be better if you held onto it. I hope it works okay." Naruto put the idol on in the same manner as Eddie did, wearing it as a belt buckle. "If you ever need to learn a few secrets of metal, like how to turn that little beast of a car there into a real monster, among other things, come see me. I'll hook you up, man." Naruto nodded and replied, "Thanks, I'll be sure to. I can't stay, as I do have more errands to run." Nikki nodded and said, "All right, just go back the way you came, and remember, the motor forge is always open." Naruto got back in the car and drove off, hearing Nikki say, "Go fucking crazy." All the way back to the entrance, Naruto laughed. He saw Kin and Tayuya waiting when he exited the car in the clearing. Kin remarked, "That looks incredible." Naruto responded, "Thanks, we'll be using it to catch up to Tsunade when the time comes. Trust me, this thing is fast." Both of them gaped at the car. After nodding, Tayuya and Kin went into town to buy new clothes. In case you're wondering why I picked Motley Crue's bass player Nikki Sixx, who has actually died 5 times, is the person I'm referring to. Shop Higurashi. Naruto noticed Tenten behind the counter as the three of them entered the store. She practically squealed when she saw him. Tenten blushed at the compliment to the store when Naruto said, "Tayuya, this shop has high-quality stuff, from practical clothes to high-grade weapons. Whatever you need, they got." Tayuya and Kin nodded, and while Tayuya went to choose a set of clothes, Kin went to choose a weapon. Naruto then said, "Pick out some clothes and a choice of weapon. I will personally see to it that you girls get trained to use it." Kin pulled Naruto to the location of the changing rooms while he was standing at the counter. Wearing black combat boots with red soles, Tayuya emerged from the changing room. She was wearing red, belted black leather pants. She wore a red tube top for a top and a black hoodie with no sleeves that was cut off at the stomach. She pulled the edge of her top to reveal some cleavage while grinning. "Like what you see?" she asked, and Naruto's face flushed deeply. Then she turned within the booth once more. She responded, "Definitely an improvement over that piece of crap-sound uniform I had to wear." Naruto laughed and responded, "Why yes it is, I swear. He must have tried to make you look like a boy. Maybe that's how he could stand having you around." The obvious jab at the snake's sexuality caused Tayuya and Kin to roll around on the ground in laughter. Tayuya stood up after they had calmed down and remarked, "Maybe, but who cares huh?" She noticed that Kin had entered the dressing room, She was dressed in somewhat of the same attire. She was wearing combat boots that were all black. She wore combat style cargo pants, a black vest with fur at the collar, and a red wife beater for a top. The fact that Tayuya and Naruto were both flushed made Kin laugh. After that, she returned inside and put on her clothes again. They both nodded, and Tenten said, "If they pick a weapon you don't know how to use, I can always give them a hand." Naruto nodded and added, "I would appreciate it. I just hope they pick a sword of some kind, as at least then I would know it. While I like seeing you in sexy clothes, let's get to business. Pick a weapon, as while I know you're strong, you can always get stronger." When they saw Tayuya, they noticed that she was wielding a scythe that appeared to be connected by two crosses. The larger of the two was the grip, while the other held the blade. Kin chose a very unusual staff, a pair of wakizashi, and something Naruto could at least assist her with. It was 5 feet long with a jiggered curve end that gave the appearance of a thin flame. Naruto simply shrugged and took out his wallet, while Tayuya and Kin gaped at Tenten as she checked everything and said, "The total for all that is 1,000 ryo." Out of paranoia, he always carried extra cash, and this time it was a wise decision. After paying for their belongings, Naruto created shadow clones and hurried them home. After passing a dango store, they heard someone say, "Hey, why don't you three come on in?" and turned to see Anko seated at a booth. Since the three of them were already heading to lunch, she gave the seat next to her a pat. With a lighthearted smile on her face, Anko gave Naruto a back hug as soon as he sat down. She responded, "So, how have you been? I saw what happened in the village, and every Jonin and Shunin are talking about you. You led a real horror show against that bastard." Naruto began to giggle and replied, "That was the plan, though if it wasn't for Kin-chan, I never would have had it go so well." Anko noticed the curse mark on Tayuya's neck, and Kin flushed at the compliment. With tears in her eyes, Anko gave Naruto another hug, this time with his head in her valley. Naruto also noticed it and remarked, "Yes Anko-san, she does, and I plan on finding a way to get rid of that disgusting blemish on you both." Kin and Tayuya wanted to do the same, so they were a little envious. The girls giggled, and Anko said, "Sorry, guess I got a bit excited." Naruto caught his breath and remarked, "It's okay, Anko-san, it's nothing to worry about." Anko realized he needed air, so she pulled him out. His eyes were little swirls, and he mumbled, "What a way to go." Anko shook her head and said, "Call me Anko-chan, please. I hate that sort of formal crap." Naruto nodded and said, "Sure thing, Anko-chan." The girl blushed and asked, "So, how did it feel to kick that bastard's ass? You gotta tell me." Tayuya responded, "It was amazing. Naruto-kun completely served Orochi Tami's ass on a platter. Even when he used a jutsu to bring back the 3 cages, Naruto-kun beat the hell out of him, even lopped off one of Orochi Tami's arms." Anko was shocked because she knew Naruto was strong based on what she saw, but it was unprecedented for him to remove one of Orochimaru's arms. "Yeah, and I would have finished the job if his little boy toy hadn't jumped in to save his ass." The girls laughed at the joke, and Naruto went on, "And in a couple days we'll be heading out to find Tsunade. By then we should have a good idea of where she is." Anko raised an eyebrow and asked, "Why are you looking for Tsunade?" Naruto sighed and explained, "Because the old monkey is gonna retire soon, and he picked her to do it. Just glad it isn't Danzo." Anko raised her glass of sake and said, "I'll drink to that. That old warhawk shouldn't even be on the council, let alone the Hokage's chair." Naruto replied, "Hopefully this will go without a hitch, but somehow I doubt it." Anko laughed and continued, "All you can do is hope. Tsunade is not exactly friendly of this village, too many bad memories. And she hates the title with a passion. But if you get her back here, it would be a miracle." After Naruto and his companions finished their meals, Anko held Naruto back and gave him a cheek kiss while stating, "I hope it goes well." Skip ahead by 2 days. Minato briefed Naruto, Kin, Tayuya, and Jiraiya as they stood in front of the village gates. The car reappeared in a flash of lightning as he said, "Drowned Doom Solo number 7, Summon Judge." Tsunade is known for her gambling, not exactly the luckiest person in the world either. She should be heading for Tanzaku town. It's a few days away. Luckily she always stays in the same place for a few days. I wish you guys luck, as I doubt she'll make it easy." Naruto nodded and pulled out his guitar, strumming the squealer sound. Then Naruto said, "Ladies and perv, we have our ride, the girls are in the back, and Jiraiya, up front with me. We have much to talk about." Once everyone was in their proper positions, Naruto pressed the gas pedal, and the car immediately took off. Near nightfall, they came to a halt in a small village where Jiraiya had to pay for 2 rooms. As it was 3-1, Jiraiya was confined to his own room while Naruto, Kin, and Tayuya shared a room. When he inquired as to why, he was told, "Your perverted ass has more than enough to pay for 2 simple rooms for the night." Kin and Tayuya were lying beside Naruto as he lay on the bed. "Soon, she'll be back to me, and the 6 of us can live happily," Naruto thought before he went to sleep. The following day, Naruto approached the door after hearing a knock. His partner suppressed a laugh as he opened the door and said, "Geez, how much did I drink, as I doubt I really see a giant fish stick in front of me." Kisame Hoshigaki, the giant fish stick, had a big tick on his forehead. "Well, I did not expect you to. It seems Akatsuki is after the 9, huh?" Kisame said, "I ain't a damn fish stick, Gaki. Anyway, we have much to discuss." Naruto nodded. Itachi, the notorious Uchiha murderer, nodded and said, "Yes, sadly, and we were tasked to bring you in." "Nice work on beating the sound ninja, the Jonin were talking all about it." Naruto laughed and said, "So, you have been to the village, yes? You know, you can drop the henge, as it's just me, you know. And I doubt your friend here is gonna say anything." Itachi appeared relieved, but then they heard, "Itachi, I finally found you. You have a lot to answer for." When the trio looked down the hallway, they were surprised to see Sasuke. Although he was dressed identically to what he wore at the finals, there was no sign of retaliation in his eyes. Sasuke responded, "Like what exactly?" Itachi held the hand sign to release a genjutsu and said, "Kai." His form was covered in the usual smoke, and when it cleared, he was not what they had assumed. "Why? What caused you to do what you did? Why kill our family?" Itachi asked, with a sad expression on his face. Since Itachi resembled his mother in every way, including hair and facial features, save for the lines around the eyes, Sasuke genuinely believed it was his mother resurrected.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.